Simultaneous Transmigration, unstoppable from the enemy multiverse. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 251 Dagu, I didn't expect you to be so good at having fun. Fuck SM. Stop kidding. They're here for revenge. Have you ever seen someone so ruthless in their sexual pursuits? And Camilla and the others even mentioned Reina's name last night. With their style, I'm worried Reina might be in danger. See, I wasn't surprised that Camilla and the others were seeking revenge on Deiko. However, the attack on Reina was likely just a scare tactic. After all, Seiya had already made 3 rules with Camilla and the others. They could seek revenge on Tiga, but they couldn't endanger Deiko's life, and they couldn't harm anyone else. Tiga was the one who committed the crime, so Deiko shouldn't be blamed. But after all, he was Tiga's current human form. Deiko used Tiga's power to protect humanity, indulging in his heroic cravings and even gaining the goddess's favor. Naturally, the debt owed to Tiga should be repaid by him in his human form. So, you're planning on having me stake out your house until Camilla and the others come looking for you, and then we'll catch them all. Given Camilla and the other two's hatred for Tiga, Seiya didn't believe that last night's beating was enough to earn their revenge. Camilla and the other two had only released Deiko last night to keep their promise. No, Camilla and the others are very cautious and have strong reconnaissance skills. They could even obtain intelligence on me in a short time. If you stake out my house, they definitely won't show up. They'll go after Reina instead. So, my request is that you secretly protect Reina during this time. Seiya. Hearing Deiko's words, Seiya was stunned. He burst into tears. Tiga might be a scumbag, but I, Deiko, am definitely a pure love warrior. He might as well talk to Camilla and have him transform into Tiga before torturing Deiko. That night, Deiko returned home from get off work. Although his injuries still ached, he felt a sense of relief. Seiya had already agreed to his request today, promising to secretly protect Lena. Fearing Lena's suspicion, Seiya even promised to keep her a secret. Daegu was deeply touched by Seiya's earnest assurance. Seiya truly was his good brother. He had worried that his brother's prolonged contact with a goddess might spark a romance. It wasn't that he lacked confidence in Lena, but rather that his buddy Seiya was too handsome. Hadn't they seen even Mayumi and Chris Maya fall for him? To avoid any further speculation, Daegu fully agreed with Seiya's suggestion to refrain from contact with Lena and instead protect her in secret. With less worry and a more prepared mind, Daegu, returning home today, quickly became aware of several mysterious figures following him. When Hitler tried to repeat his previous tactic, placing a black plastic bag over his head, Daegu grabbed his arm. Last night, I let you succeed because I wasn't careful enough. If I, Daegu, don't show my might, you'd think I was only good for making soup. Shaking off Hitler's arm, Daegu pulled out his divine light rod from his bosom and, before Camilla and the others, transformed into the human-sized form of Tiga. Seeing Daegu's transformed form, Camilla and the others, filled with rage, also transformed into dark giants. Despite his injuries, Hitler and Darum were weakened by their own light power, so Tiga, initially outmatched, fought them both. Just as Tiga's confidence surged, and he realized that Camilla and the others weren't as strong as he'd imagined, Camilla, who had been watching from the sidelines, took action. A long whip of light burst forth from Camilla's hand and wrapped around Tiga's ankle, who was battling Hitler and Darum. A second later, with a violent tug from Camilla, Tiga, suddenly losing his balance, fell flat on his face. Seeing Tiga fall to the ground, Hitler and Darum rushed forward and attacked him. Just as Tiga was about to get up again, Camilla, holding the whip of light, locked Tiga's neck with a whip and stepped on his face, pinning him to the ground again. I have to say, the state you have become now has aroused my pleasure and revenge. It's a pity that I only have 3 minutes. It's really a pity. Tiga, who was stepped on the face by Camilla, looked humiliated. He found that even if he was prepared, he still couldn't change anything in the situation of 1 against 3. Obviously, even after transforming into Tiga, Daegu was still taken away by Camilla and the other two. It was not until the next morning that he woke up in his home with a bruised face. Did Camilla and the other two come looking for revenge on you last night? A battered Dago arrived for work today, much to the surprise of the victory team. Though he insisted it was an accident, Seiya instantly guessed that poor Dago had likely been subjected to another beating from Camilla and the other two. Did anything happen to Reina last night? Dago was more concerned about his goddess, Reina, than about the beating he'd taken. They were all busy beating you up, so how could they have found time to look for Reina? Don't worry, I was secretly protecting her until she fell asleep last night. Despite the prior agreement with Camilla and the others, Seiya couldn't guarantee that Camilla and the other dark giants wouldn't turn against him again, so he had indeed been secretly protecting Reina yesterday. Well, because he was secretly protecting her, he even knew what brand of body wash Lena used. After all, Dago had said that Camilla and the others were so cunning that they'd caught him off guard. So, Seiya wanted Seiya to constantly protect Lena and keep her in his sight, so he did just that. You got beaten up even harder today than yesterday. Could it be that resentment increases with damage? Seiya was genuinely puzzled by this. He'd assumed that if Tiga had Camilla and the others beat him up a few more times, his anger would have subsided. But how come the injuries on the second day were even worse than the first? Logically, shouldn't Camilla's resentment decrease the more she vented her anger? I don't know why. They didn't hit me in the face on the first day, but last night, after I transformed into Tiga, they started hitting me like crazy. Especially Camilla, who used war trample on my face multiple times. Seiya, I see. So you transformed into Tiga last night. No wonder they were so deadly. Chapter 252 The darkness that covers the whole world is coming. For the next week, Dago would be blocked by Camilla and her three companions almost every night when he returned home, and would be taken away to be beaten. After a week of this, Dago even felt that he was much more resilient than before. He also went from being humiliated by Camilla's stepping on his face to gradually becoming numb to it, and now he has even started to get used to it. What can he do? He can't beat them, and since he can't resist, he can only endure it silently. During this period, he did think about asking Seiya to work together to fight back, but he was worried that Camilla and her three companions would play a diversionary trick, so he just endured everything alone. Anyway, Camilla and her three companions seemed to be trying to make him abandon the light and join the dark, so they never killed him, but just tortured him repeatedly. At first, Dago felt humiliated and painful, but gradually, he got used to it. It's just a little bit of wind and frost, and everything that can't defeat him will eventually make him stronger. Today, Dago was walking home late at night, expecting the usual three gangs, 2 men and 1 woman, to leap from the brush by the roadside. Strangely, even after returning home, the Camilla trio hadn't appeared. Initially, Dago suspected a trick, assuming the trio had found no pleasure in torturing him and had gone after Reina. However, when he contacted Seiya, he discovered that the Camilla trio didn't seem to be bothering Reina either, leaving him baffled. So, does that mean Gitanjia is about to awaken? After hanging up Dago's call, Seiya looked at the Camilla trio with a serious expression. The Camilla trio had, as usual, intended to seek revenge on Tiga. For over a week, this had become a part of their daily routine. After training Dago for several days, the Camilla trio admitted that their initial hostility had dissipated considerably. Besides their nightly revenge against Tiga's adherent activities, they had also spent the past week or so absorbing the various cultural influences of modern humanity during the day. It had to be said that Helio's earlier words were correct. Modern human civilization was far more interesting than before. Camilla had recently taken a liking to modern fashion and had been on a shopping spree. Hitler had become a total otaku, now a seasoned anime fan, occasionally punctuating his conversation with a few cool anime lines. Darim, thanks to his muscular physique, was hired as a trainer at a gym and was now passionate about lifting weights. With this new hobby and his nightly pounding on Dago, their resentment had indeed waned, and they began to sincerely believe that destroying the world for something as frivolous as world domination was a shame. If the world were destroyed, where would they buy all those beautiful clothes? What about the figures and comics? Would they still be able to enjoy lifting weights in the future? No wonder Helio had previously thought world domination was boring. Now, looking back, it was truly meaningless, aside from proving their own awesomeness. The reason the three of them didn't go and beat up Dago today was simple. As dark giants, they could sense the darkness's imminent resurgence, Gitanjia's imminent awakening. Sensing the dark forces stirring, their first thought was to find Seiya and discuss a battle plan. After all, while they were outnumbered, Gotengio was no pushover. He was the ruler of darkness, the true culprit behind the destruction of the ancient civilization 30 million years ago. Compared to what he had done, what they had done back then was nothing more than a minor skirmish. What do you think my chances of winning against Gotengio are, given my strength? Consider my previous victory over the demon bird Zoga and your own strength. Hearing Seiya's question, Camilla and the other two exchanged glances and shook their heads. Although you're the strongest giant of light we've ever seen, defeating Gotengio with your strength is nearly impossible. As the ruler of darkness, he's practically the embodiment of darkness. And, aside from his offensive power, Gotengio's defense is truly astonishing. Seiya was taken aback by Camilla and the other two's words. Although he hadn't previously deployed his full strength, hearing such an answer from Camilla and the other two still surprised him. It seemed Gotengio was even stronger than he'd imagined. If Tiga were to fail, even if he unleashed all his might, he might not be able to defeat him. Seiya was well aware of Gotengio's strong defense. After all, looking back at various Ultraman special effects films, it's common for Ultraman, when aided by others to gain new powers, to defeat enemy bosses with just a few punches or kicks. However, compared to other bosses, Gotengio withstood numerous blows and kicks from Shining Tiga, ultimately succumbing to Tiga's ultimate attack, Shining Zapirian Ray. Remember, Shining Tiga, while not as powerful as the Mystic Four, is still among the strongest Ultramen below them. Being able to withstand Shining Tiga's brutal blows before ultimately succumbing to his ultimate attack, Gotengio's toughness and resilience put him among the best among monster bosses. Almost the day after Camilla and the others approached Seiya, a major incident occurred at the Rulai ruins. Ever since the last exploration of the ruins, which led to the awakening of the Dark Giant and the subsequent rampage of several demonic birds Oga, the TPC headquarters immediately sealed off the Lulai ruins and suspended exploration of the ancient civilization. However, despite humanity's reverence, the awakening darkness would not be quelled by human compromise. From the depths of the Lulai ruins, a black mist laden with ions erupted. In a short period of time, it spread across the entire Pacific Ocean, completely obscuring the sky and spreading globally at an alarming rate. In less than a day, the ionized fog enveloped the entire Earth. Due to the ions in the fog, electronic systems and communications equipment within its reach were instantly paralyzed. The TPC's offshore base at its Far East headquarters was the first to be affected, crippled. Because modern society relies on technology and electricity, when the black fog spread from the sea to the cities on land, all cities on Earth were paralyzed and darkened. And even that wasn't the worst of it, because in addition to the arrival of the black fog, many of the pioneer monsters, the demon birds Oga, in the Lulai ruins were awakened and flew around the world. Chapter 253, The Dark Ruler Gotengio appears. The darkness's attack on humanity was so swift that even the TPC headquarters and other combat units had no time to react, leaving humanity with little resistance. Previous monsters had only threatened a small region or city at best. This time, however, the monster's power was global, and anyone with a bit of common sense knew it was something extraordinary. Because the source of all the anomalies lay in the sudden appearance of the ultra-ancient ruins of Lulai in the Pacific Ocean, many high-ranking officials believed that destroying the source of the disaster would restore order. The Victory Team's naval base had been completely paralyzed by the black mist unleashed by Gotengio. Therefore, when the Victory Team members received the call to assemble, they headed to a branch base on land. Due to the global black fog, our offshore base's systems have been completely paralyzed. The personnel who remained at the base that day are now missing. Director Sawai has requested that we risk our lives by heading to the disabled offshore base, activating backup power, and launching a rescue operation. The entire Earth is now shrouded in black fog. Aside from previously stored emergency energy, the world's power infrastructure is completely paralyzed. Radar and signal detectors are completely ineffective in the fog, and finding the offshore base in the vast ocean is impossible without the help of nautical charts and experienced sailors. Director Sawai's decision to order the Victory Team to take such a risk was entirely out of desperation. All of TPC headquarters combat equipment, including the Hidden Victory, Alpha, Beta, and the 150-meter-long battleship-sized Detritus, are stationed in the offshore base's F4 hangar. With a swarm of demonic birds Oga wreaking havoc across the globe, Humanity can't rely solely on Ultraman Tiga and Ultraman Hero while everyone else sits and waits for their fate, right? I'm sorry to trouble you again this time. After all, only if we regain control of the sea base can humans have some ability to fight back against those monsters. The bosses in the upper echelons believe that since the source of all disasters comes from the ruins of Lulue, all they have to do is destroy it, so they have decided to launch a nuclear strike on the ruins of Lulue. After all, the ultra-ancient ruins of Lulue are located in an uninhabited sea, so this proposal was quickly approved. As long as the ruins of Lulue are destroyed, those monsters will no longer appear in an endless stream. As long as we cooperate with Ultraman Tiga and gradually eliminate the monsters that appear in various places, humans will be able to usher in peace again. When Seiya heard that Director Sawai wanted them to retake the sea base, he was not too surprised. But when he heard that the upper echelons actually planned to nuke the ruins of Lulue, Seiya and Deco couldn't help but exclaimed at the same time. Director Sawai, are you serious? Are they really planning to do this? Seeing Deco's anxious questioning, Captain Iruma, knowing his true identity, sensed something was amiss and asked, Captain Deco, are there any serious consequences if we do this? Oh, are there any serious consequences? They're quite serious, aren't they? Within the ruins of Lulue lies a being far more terrifying than the Dark Giant and the demonic bird Zoga. They're the true mastermind behind the scenes. The demonic bird Zoga, now wreaking havoc across the world, is merely its underling. The ancient ruins of Lulue have endured for 30 million years. Anyone with a discerning eye can guess that they're protected by a mysterious power. With humanity's current civilization and weaponry, are we really serious about destroying them? I'm afraid not only will the ruins survive, but the monsters slumbering within them will be awakened. It wasn't Deco who answered Iruma, but the sneering Seiya. In Seiya's view, humanity's current actions were truly utterly suicidal. Seiya didn't know the true origins of the Lulue ruins, but even a casual thought would tell him that a place capable of sealing off Camilla and the evil god Gratangia couldn't be anything simple. If Seiya remembered correctly, even after Shining Tiga ultimately defeated Gratangia, the Lulue ruins simply sank again under Shining Tiga's Pelion Ray, undestroyed. Such a formidable ancient ruin, yet the current authorities were able to destroy it with humanity's current civilization and weaponry. Was shenanigan? Even if humanity's nuclear weapons truly destroyed the Lulue ruins, could they still count on nuclear weapons to defeat the ruler of darkness? Director Sawai, please report to the higher authorities and halt the nuclear strike order against the Lulue ruins. Lina and Iruma Megumi, knowing Seiya and Deco's true identities, spoke in unison. In fact, after hearing Seiya and Deco's analysis, Director Sawai realized the seriousness of the situation. Seiya and Deco had both explored the ruins before, and their words suggested that there must be much they didn't know. However, just as Director Sawai was about to use his authority to contact his superiors, the ground beneath their feet began to shake slightly. A massive mushroom cloud rose from the Pacific Ocean, and a gigantic figure appeared above the surface. Clearly, just as Seiya had suspected, humanity's most powerful weapon, after bombarding the Lulue ruins, had not only been ineffective, but had also awakened the evil god Gratangia. Why had Gratangia awakened after so many years? It was because of the drastic changes in Earth's environment. And yet, humanity, with a direct nuclear strike, exacerbated the already drastically altered environment. It was as if their own demise wasn't coming soon enough. A figure with a massive spiral shell, its surface covered in dense black holes, eyes nestled beneath its mouth, and a vast array of tentacles and enormous pincers at its mouth, emerged from the sea, letting out a roar like an elephant. Upon seeing this figure, the victory team, veterans of years of monster battling, instantly understood that this monster's size and aura were utterly unmatched by any they had encountered before. Oh my god, how huge is this monster? Horii and the others from the victory team exclaimed in amazement at the immense size of Gratangia, which shrank like a puddle before it. What you see now is only a portion of its body. The majority lies below sea level. According to records from the ancient ruins, the Dark Ruler was over 200 meters long, 130 meters tall, and weighed 200,000 tons. Chapter 254, even when Helio and Diga are stacked together, they are still not as tall as him. 200 meters long and 130 meters high. According to previous data analysis, Tiga seems to be only 53 meters tall, and Herod is 55 meters. So this means that even if Tiga and Herod are stacked together, they are not as tall as this monster. After hearing the data analysis from the techie Horii, everyone rolled their eyes at him and said, "Team member Horii, it's already this time, and you are still telling your jokes? The bigger the monster is, the stronger it is. Although this monster is a little bigger, I believe if it is Tiga and the others, because of fighting side by side with Tiga during this period of time, everyone on the victory team had a blind confidence in Tiga, but just when Iruma-K glanced at Keiko and was about to say something inspiring, he was interrupted by Seiya on the side. The evil god Gratangia isn't just mighty, his power is also immense. Known as the ruler of darkness, he was responsible for the destruction of a super-ancient civilization 30 million years ago. To be frank, ordinary giants of light stand no chance against him, let alone the dignity of facing him. This wasn't to disparage his own prestige, but rather the reality of the situation. 30 million years ago, Camilla and her foursome defeated the other giants of light, while Camilla and her group feared Gratangia like a tiger. The difference was almost unmistakable. Team Seiya, you need to have more faith in Tiga. He's defeated many powerful foes to date. Narumi Megumi, while emphasizing Tiga's support, glanced at Keiko, hoping the real Tiga would speak out and rally the troops. But who would have thought that under Iruma-K's encouraging and expectant gaze, Daigo shook his head and said, "Seiya is right. Although we haven't fought it yet, Gratangia is not an ordinary monster. Even Tiga may not be able to defeat it." Hearing Daigo's words, Iruma-K was stunned for a moment. If even Tiga himself said that he couldn't defeat this monster, didn't that mean that humanity was completely doomed? Seiya, even Ultraman Hero can do it? Judging from his previous performance in fighting monsters. Although Ultraman Hero has appeared less often than Ultraman Tiga, he should be much stronger than Tiga, right? Although the people on the victory team didn't know why Lena suddenly asked Seiya such a question, they also turned to look at Seiya at this moment, wanting to hear his answer. I can't say Hero is completely hopeless, but I can only say that he lacks a decisive move. Gatenji is incredibly strong and tough. In gaming terms, his defense is practically maxed out. If anyone else were Hero's human form, they would almost certainly be defeated against Gatenji. However, if Hero were on par with Tiga in terms of combat power, then that power level would represent Hero's upper limit, but not Seiya's. Just like how Leo and Mebius honed their fighting skills as humans, applying them to their Ultraman forms, a human's combat awareness and skills can sometimes directly determine an Ultraman's strength once transformed. If we're solely considering combat skills and awareness, then Hero, as Seiya, is undoubtedly the strongest. In melee combat, Seiya wouldn't hesitate to face Leo, the physical education specialist, or even the four mysterious Ultraman. However, Gadanji's toughness made him the most formidable opponent. As Hero, he lacked a decisive killing move. Even if he could evenly match Gadanji's strength, he wouldn't be able to finish him off. Take Tiga's ultimate move, the Zephyrian Ray, for example. Even someone as powerful as Seiya could only dodge or use other attacks to counter it. But the Great Kong, no, the evil god Gadanj, would be completely unscathed even if it took Tiga's Zephyrian Ray head-on. In other words, if Seiya, as Hero, showed his true strength, he could evenly match Gadanji's strength, or even make neither side do anything. However, such a result would be a loss for Seiya and Hero, as Ultraman's energy only lasts for a few minutes on Earth. With this setup, how could they possibly fight a protracted battle? Daigo, I have an idea. I'd like to return to the Lulai ruins. Until then, I'll leave Gratangia to you. Daigo, who had originally wanted to discuss teaming up with Seiya to defeat the boss, was completely paralyzed when he heard Seiya's encouraging expression. No, you might have been able to dawdle with smaller monsters before, but now you're facing the final boss, and you're still planning to lay low? Why did Hela, the light, choose you in the first place? Gratangia, appearing out of the sea, was slowly approaching the coast. Imagine the devastating impact it would wreak on humanity once it made landfall. Although he complained about Seiya's slacking off, Daigo showed no fear when the moment of danger threatened him, ready to unleash his divine light rod and confront Gratangia head-on. Even after learning that Tiga was no match for Gratangia, Iruma-K told Daigo he had no need or obligation to fight a battle he had no chance of winning. Yet, Daigo resolutely declared that since the light had chosen him, it was his responsibility to protect the Earth. This was the light's choice, and his own choice as a human. With a flash of light glittering through the darkness, Tiga appeared before Gratangia, eagerly awaiting his arrival. However, compared to his previous foes, Tiga now seemed incredibly small before Gratangia. Tiga had always been undefeated against all manner of monsters, so when he appeared, the disaster-stricken people everywhere cheered with joy. Like the members of the victory team, although the monster this time was significantly larger than previous ones, most people remained confident that Tiga would ultimately defeat it. Tiga's dazzling appearance certainly caught Gotenjia's attention. After all, as a fellow ultra-ancient creature from 30 million years ago, Gotenjia was familiar with Tiga, and the two were even sworn enemies. The Dark Tiga used to be a being that even Gotenjia was afraid of, but why he has become so weak now, Gotenjia doesn't know. But none of this matters. There can only be one person who can conquer the world. Besides, Gotenjia and Tiga don't have a good relationship, so just go for it. Gotenjia has a huge size and tonnage, so its movement speed is also very slow. So after Tiga appeared, it took the lead in attacking, and launched a crazy combination of punches, hitting Gotenjia's quink-like shell. However, the facts also proved that as long as the defense is full, you can really do whatever you want. After the transformation, Tiga, accompanied by his own appearance BGM, attacked Gotenjia with a barrage of output, even sending out a lot of sparks, but in fact it was just pure scraping. Chapter 255 The Dark Giant is actually a friendly force? As the ruler of darkness, the evil god Gotenjia's attack method is relatively simple compared to other bosses, giant tentacles extending from its shell. While Gotenjia's massive size undoubtedly limits its mobility, this doesn't necessarily mean its attack range or power is weak. The tentacles extending from its head are numerous and flexible, and their sheer size makes even Tiga in his combined form unable to break free. Switching to his red power form, Tiga finally managed to free himself from the tentacle wrapped around his neck, gathering his strength and unleashing his ultimate move, Dillium Stream. However, the Dillium Stream, like a fireball, struck Gotenjia's massive frame, sending forth numerous sparks, but the damage it inflicted was minimal. Forget destroying Gotenjia, the Dillium Stream couldn't even shake him. Even after enduring a fatal blow from Tiga's power form, Gotenjia opened his maw beneath his shell and unleashed a black aura at least 30 million years old, enveloping Tiga's body. The black mist emanating from Gotenjia's mouth was far more powerful than the ordinary black mist expelled from his shell. As the massive, charged black mist enveloped Tiga's form, bursts of lightning and thunder erupted from within, sending Tiga, who had sustained severe damage, into a state of panic. Due to the continuous lightning damage from the black mist, Tiga quickly transformed into his purple agility form. Unfortunately, every time he attempted to escape the mist's reach, he was struck back by Gotenjia's tentacles. As Tiga's strength gradually drained from the black mist, and he even half knelt on the ground, those who had previously placed high hopes in him began to express worry. The situation was clear, and anyone with even a modicum of judgment could easily see that this time, Tiga was no match for the giant monster. Its opponent's power far surpassed Tiga's, not only taking Tiga's attacks head-on without a scratch, but also acting more like a deliberate humiliation than a battle. Where's Seiya? Why doesn't Seiya come to Tiga's aid? If this continues, Daegu will really. Lina had just learned from the captain's conversation with Daegu that Daegu is actually Tiga. Confused by the situation, she recalled Seiya's previous crashes and finally realized why Tiga always appeared after Daegu's crashes. She also understood why Seiya and Daegu were so secretive. It seemed they had known each other's identities for a long time, and it was only the others who had been kept in the dark. Seiya? How can Seiya be of any help at this moment? He's not waiting, could it be? Hearing Lina's cries, searching for Seiya, Iruma was stunned for a moment. Then, looking at Lina with surprise, she asked, Lina, could it be that Seiya is the same as Daegu? Yes, Seiya, like Daegu, is also a human chosen by the light. He is Ultraman Hero. I saw him transform right in front of me last time. At this point, Lina didn't see the point in hiding the truth. After all, Iruma knew Daegu was Ultraman Tiga, so the addition of Seiya didn't seem like a big deal. After hearing Lina's confirmation, Iruma was also stunned. She had originally thought Daegu was Ultraman Tiga, which was quite surprising. But she had never imagined that Seiya could be the other giant of light, Hero. And Tiga and Hero were both members of their victory team. What a coincidence. Where's Seiya? If he's Hero, then if he and Tiga team up, they should have a chance of victory even against Gotenjia. Upon learning that Seiya was Hero, Iruma was both surprised and excited. Compared to Ultraman Tiga, who always showed up to monsters like a clock in, while Hero had aided humanity a few times, His frequent appearances meant even Iruma and the others couldn't confirm whether Hiro was currently aware of Earth's crisis. Ideally, Tiga and Hiro would join forces, but they weren't giants of light, so how could they know how to find Hiro? But the situation was clearly different now. Since they had learned from Lena that Seiya was Hiro, finding Seiya was practically equivalent to finding Hiro. Gotenji's black fog disrupted the normal operation of machinery and blocked radio waves, so much so that even the victory team's communicators couldn't reach Seiya. So, quickly, at Mayumi's suggestion, Iruma and the others approached Crismea again, hoping she could use telepathy to contact Seiya. Seiya, who had already slipped into the Rului ruins during the battle between Gotenji and Tiga, was stunned when Maya's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. "What's going on? Have you contacted Seiya? What did he say?" Seeing Crismea open her eyes, Iruma and Lena beside her asked anxiously. Seiya said Tiga's defeat was something he'd anticipated, but he has more important things to attend to and can't help him for now. He also told us not to worry too much, as he'd already found some helpers for Tiga. Hearing Maya's answer, Iruma and Lena were also stunned. If Seiya wasn't lying, then there were other titans on Earth besides Tiga and Hira. But with so many titans on Earth, why had they, the victorious team, never heard of them? Or were the helpers Seiya mentioned not actually titans, or perhaps just a deception? The helpers he was referring to were probably us, right? I never thought I'd have to save that bastard Tiga someday. How annoying, you're Lena. Tiga's current girlfriend? Tisk, I have to say, his taste is terrible these days. Megumi, Iruma and the others were just beginning to wonder who Seiya was talking about, but unexpectedly, two men and a woman suddenly appeared before them, speaking in a confusing manner. However, in response to Megumi, Iruma's and the others' bewildered expressions, Camilla and the other two didn't bother to explain. Instead, they transformed back into their Dark Titan forms before them. With the appearance of these three Dark Titans, Tiga, still shrouded in black fog, and Megumi, Iruma and the others were all stunned. Chapter 256. The situation takes a sharp turn for the worse. Upon seeing Camilla and the other two appear in the sea, Tiga and Lena were surprised for different reasons. Narumi and Lena were astonished by Seiya's resourcefulness, having even managed to turn the former enemy, the Dark Titan, into a powerful force on their side. No wonder the awakened Dark Titans hadn't caused trouble since releasing the young Zoga birds in the Lului ruins. It seemed they had been swayed by Seiya. The assistance of Camilla and the other two, combined with Seiya's earlier remarks at the meeting, suggested that Seiya had anticipated this eventuality and made necessary arrangements, compared to their unawareness of the danger. While Ultraman Hero may appear to be a violent giant of light, Seiya, as his human form, is a thoughtful and exceptionally reliable being. Compared to the surprise of Lena and the others, Tiga and Deiko's astonishment was more like horror than surprise. The idea that Camilla and the other two were allies hadn't occurred to Dagu. After all, until yesterday, he'd been mercilessly beaten by them every night. Seeing Camilla and the other two appear, Tiga was more inclined to believe they were there to take advantage of his misfortune than to believe they were there to help. He'd already been beaten to pulp by Gotenji, and now three Dark Titans with a grudge against him were here. What chance did he have of fighting? Seeing Camilla swing her whip, Tiga, trapped in the black mist, instinctively crouched down, his head in his hands. However, he was surprised to find that Camilla's whip didn't strike him, but instead wrapped around Gotenji's tentacle, and with a powerful tug, it sent the tentacle, intended for him, lashing out into the air. Although unsure why Camilla had come to his aid, Tiga didn't miss this golden opportunity. As Camilla entangled Gotenji's tentacles, he quickly escaped the black fog's reach. Seeing Tiga in his agile form, Hitler was displeased. The power Tiga was now wielding was the very power he had stolen from him 30 million years ago. Although he wanted to settle his score with Tiga, Hitler, thinking of his agreement with Seiya and the current situation, ultimately suppressed his anger and decided to settle his score later. Roar, seeing Tiga, who had been toyed with him, escape thanks to Camilla and the others, Gotenji let out a roar like an elephant's roar. Then, with a swipe of his tentacles, Camilla, clearly outmatched in power, was easily thrown away. Meanwhile, Darum and Hitler attacked simultaneously. One performed a front flip in the air, followed by a flying kick, while the other charged forward and delivered a powerful punch. Gotenji's body erupted with sparks again as he punched and kicked. At this moment, Tiga transformed into his composite form again, forming an L shape with his hands and unleashing his most powerful beam, the Zephyrian Ray. Almost simultaneously, Camilla on the other side broke free from the tentacles and simultaneously unleashed her ultimate, the Camilla Spark. The two beams converged at a single point, their power surpassing the sum of their powers. Even the evil god, Gotenjio, was instantly engulfed in a cloud of smoke by the dual impact of the beams. Seeing this scene before them, everyone from the victory team to those watching on Earth were filled with excitement. While most people were puzzled as to why so many new titans had suddenly appeared besides Tiga, with 4 against 1, no matter how powerful the monster was. It was impossible for it to defeat all of their titans in one fell swoop. The crowd's joy and happiness didn't last long. The next scene quickly brought their newly ignited hopes to a crashing bottom. After the smoke dissipated, Gotenjio reappeared in sight. He had swallowed Tiga and Camilla, the combined radiance of the Zaperiod Ray and Camilla's spark, and remained completely unharmed. Even more tentacles swung forth from his maw, sending Camilla, Hitler, and Darum careening off. Tiga was particularly targeted. His massive claws, hidden in the seawater, suddenly burst forth, not only clamping down on him but also radiating a dark purple beam from his gaping maw, instantly piercing him. Skewered by the beam, Tiga's body gradually shrank to stone from head to toe, and Gotenjia's massive claws finally tossed him into the depths of the sea. The battle unfolded so swiftly that the spectators, watching the scene unfold before their eyes, were instantly devastated before they could even fully process it. They were completely baffled. Just a moment ago, they had 4 titans on their side, believing they could rely on numbers to gain the upper hand. Who knew, in the blink of an eye, that Tiga was reduced to stone, while Camilla and the other 2 were easily and severely injured by Gotenjia. Watching Tiga reduced to stone and plummet into the depths of the sea, pinned to the ground by Gotenjia's tentacles, Camilla and the other 2 were stunned. Honestly, compared to the others, Tiga's defeat didn't overly sadden them. After all, they had a grudge against him to begin with. If Seiya hadn't intervened, they would have sought revenge against him when they first awakened. But now that they were on Seiya's side, no matter how much they disliked Tiga, they certainly didn't want to see him defeated so easily. If Tiga were defeated, then Gotenjio would be the next to go after them. That bastard hero, that's completely different from what he promised. Did he say that even if Tiga refused to accept the power of darkness, he could still transform into new form? Camilla, are you still believing that hero's lies? I think he's the most despicable person. He tricked us into opposing Gotenjia, but where was he? I'm afraid he saw the situation was getting worse and fled, pinned to the ground by Gotenjia's tentacles. Camilla and the other 2, communicating telepathically, deeply regretted their decision. They felt they had been deceived by that bastard hero, but just as they were cursing Seiya, a miracle happened. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257 Shining Haleo, I'm super strong. Indeed, just as Camilla and the other 2 were internally cursing Seiya for his shamelessness, streaks of golden light, like meteors piercing the darkness, converged from all directions and fell into the sea, entering the stone statue that Tiga had transformed into. These rays of light, emanating from all directions, were actually the rays of hope held by humans from all corners of the world. Unlike adults, who often feel despair and helplessness when faced with despair, children's hearts are purer and simpler. In the complex and realistic eyes of adults, Tiga, pierced through and reduced to stone, had been defeated by the monster, and humanity had lost its last hope. However, in the eyes of these children, Tiga had always been their unbeatable power. Tiga was only temporarily at a disadvantage, and with their support, he would surely defeat the monster as usual and protect them all. It was these pure wishes that, now radiating into streaks of light, pierced the darkness and converged directly into Tiga's stone statue. Inside Tiga's body, Dago, now trapped within the crystal, first saw a faint glow in the darkness, which then grew stronger. Go Tiga, Tiga is the strongest, Tiga will defeat the monster and protect everyone. Trapped within the crystal, Dago was quickly drawn to the light before him. Children appeared before him, cheering him on. Seeing the children's smiling faces and the light of hope emanating from them, Dago felt an unprecedented surge of strength, and he reached out his hand. Outside, Camilla and the others, watching the rays of light fall into Tiga's stone statue, understood that the turning point hero had spoken of had arrived. While they didn't know why Hero had foresight, they knew for sure. If they wanted to stage a comeback, they had to buy Tiga time. Rays of light converged from all corners of the world, but reviving Tiga and transforming him into shining Tiga would clearly take time. As the ultimate boss, Gotenjia was no fool. Seeing the light it hated steadily converge, it naturally wouldn't sit idly by and wait for death. Knowing the enemy was about to unleash their ultimate attack, Gotenjia remained silent and waited for death, a move only a third-rate villain would employ. Gotenjia aimed to completely destroy the statue before Tiga could resurrect. Completely destroying the statue would deprive the light of hope of a vehicle, rendering Tiga powerless. Noticing Gotenjia's actions, Camilla and the other three, along with the victory team, grew anxious. Unfortunately, despite their efforts to stop Gotenjia, they were powerless against the might of Gotenjia. Furthermore, as dark giants, their power source shared with Gotenjia, Camilla and the other three, who attempted to stop Gotenjia, quickly had their dark energy absorbed by Gotenjia, transforming them into stone statues. As the light continued to converge, Daigo within Tiga struggled to reach out, on the verge of breaking through the crystal that trapped him. Almost, just as Daigo was about to touch the light, Gotenjia, now strengthened by absorbing the dark power of Camilla and the other two, fired another ray of light from his mouth, attempting to finish off Tiga before the light could fully converge. Boom! Just as Gotenjia's ray was about to strike the resurrected Tiga, Lina, Iruma-K, and the others, piloting the Hitayan, cried out Daigo's name. Suddenly, a blinding burst of light erupted from the Lului ruins behind Gotenjia. In the blazing light, even the sky, previously shrouded in darkness, was now dispelled like dark clouds avoiding the sun, much of it dispersed by the sharp sword of light. Chech, Gotenjia, who was about to finish off the attack, felt a burning pain from behind him. The next second, before he could turn around, a figure shrouded in golden light struck his massive carapace. Compared to Tiga and Camilla's previous scraping blows, Seiya's kick on Gotenjia was like a direct, multiplier-like critical hit. Gotenjia's previously unmovable bulk was now forcibly shifted across the ocean for several kilometers by Seiya's powerful kick. Even Gotenjia, with his thick skin, couldn't help but groan in pain. Because its massive mass, weighing hundreds of thousands of tons, had been forced sideways by the kick, the penetrating beam from its mouth, originally aimed at Tiga, now naturally fell into the void. When they saw the figure suddenly appear and kick Gotenjia away, Lina, Iruma-K, and the others were overjoyed, exclaiming, "It's Ultraman Hero! Seiya has finally taken action." After kicking Gotenjia away, Seiya glanced at Camilla and the other two, who had been reduced to stone statues. He reached for his timer and drew a portion of his power from his body, transforming it into 3 rays of light, which he poured into the stone statues of Camilla and the other two. The infusion of light revived Camilla and the other two, whose power had been exhausted, and their once gloomy colors became unusually bright and vibrant. As Dark Titans, their dark power had just been drained by Gotenjia, leaving them completely empty, barely clinging to the meager light power Seiya had previously provided them. Now, Seiya had bestowed upon them even more light power, and their resurrection had naturally transformed them into Titans of Light. As for Camilla and the others, feeling the changes in their bodies, they glanced at Hela, who stood before them like a little golden man, and a wave of guilt welled up in their hearts. They just scolded Seiya profusely, but to their surprise, Seiya not only didn't flee, but actually kept his promise. And while they didn't know what had happened to Hela, they could sense that he seemed incredibly powerful. At this level, he might even be able to defeat the evil god Gotenjia. Seiya's current state was undoubtedly formidable. If Tiga's resurrection from humanity's light of hope was shining Tiga, then he was now shining Hela. The power that enveloped him was also the power of light, but while Tiga's light came from humanity, Hela's light now came from the remains of the giants of light from the ancient battlefield within the Lului ruins. Chapter 258 The miserable evil god was beaten by giants. That's right, Seiya wasn't actually slacking off when he disappeared. Instead, he'd gone to the ancient battlefield within the Lului ruins. There, the remains of countless titans, who perished in battle against ancient monsters 30 million years ago, lay. In the story version of the final Holy War, Camilla harnessed the lingering resentment of Gotenjia and the dark energy of the ancient city of Lului's ruins to transform into the fusion monster Demogia. Tiga was ultimately overwhelmed and slain by it again, but was later revived by the lingering light of the ancient warriors at the ancient battlefield, Transforming once again into Shining Tiga, fearing Tiga's demise, Seiya summoned him to the ancient battlefield and, through various means, gathered the heroic spirits of the ancient warriors of light. Summoning spirits is a true mastery for onmages. After gathering and awakening the spirits of the ancient warriors at the ancient battlefield, Seiya explained the reawakening of the evil god. As a titan of light who had forsaken darkness and joined the light, Tiga earned the respect of his predecessors, and so too did Hera, a titan of light with a sterling lineage. Therefore, after all this was told, the ancient warriors of the ancient battlefield were incredibly optimistic about Hera. After all, in their time, anyone who dared to confront the evil god Gotangio is undoubtedly the strongest and most accomplished warrior of light. Faced with this exceptional junior, the heroic spirits of the ancient warriors unreservedly entrusted their power of light to Seiya. This immense power of light transformed Seiya into Shining Hera. Not only did his wielding of the Shine Aura shield cause him to constantly glow with an intense golden aura, but his height also skyrocketed from 55 meters to 130 meters. The remaining light power of the ancient warriors had a limited duration, so rather than allowing it to dissipate after the battle, it was better to use it to save Camilla and her 3 minions. Gotangio, observing Hera, brimming with light power, immediately realized that Seiya was no match for them. However, Gotangio could sense that while Hera's light power was powerful, it was only temporary. Relying on the power of others wouldn't last long. Therefore, believing in a valiant act, Gotangio, after the pilgrims and their companions released a puff of black mist, intended to sink his massive body into the sea. Unlike those mindless villains, Gotangio understood the importance of last-hitting and defensive growth. The enemy was clearly buffed up with buffs, and engaging them in a decisive battle now would be a sheer act of self-destruction. The planet was now shrouded in darkness. He could simply retreat to the depths and hide for a while. Once the enemy's buffs wore off, Gotangio would once again be a one-on-many-man battle. But just as Gotangio's plan clicked into place, and as his massive body prepared to dive into the sea, a massive pillar of light suddenly shot up from the sea behind him. Gotangio, who had been preparing to dive into the sea, was only halfway there when his massive shell was struck again. This time, the attacker wasn't Seiya's transformed Shining Hero, but Shining Tiga, who had been resurrected under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Shining Tiga, resurrected with the light of humanity's hope, had grown to a staggering 120 meters tall. Like Shining Hero, his entire body, radiating an intense golden glow thanks to the activation of his Shining Aura shield, resembled Shining Tiga in front of him, and then glanced at Shining Hero behind him. The evil god Gotangio was completely stunned. Even though he was the ultimate boss, he couldn't afford to bully others like this. He couldn't even defeat one little golden man, and now there were two. What the hell was there for him, the ruler of darkness? In front and behind him stood the 130-meter-tall Shining Hera and the 120-meter-tall Shining Tiga, respectively. Nearby, Camilla and her 3 companions, transformed into giants of light, flanked the enemy. Gotangio now looked like a weak and helpless boss in a raid. Camilla and her 3 companions, watching as Shining Hera and Shining Tiga, each supporting the other, pummeled Gotangio in the middle, leaving him unable to defend both ends, their faces filled with relief. It was a good thing they'd chosen the right side in the first place. Didn't they see how the Dark Ruler had been reduced to a mere toy in the hands of those two? If they hadn't abandoned the dark side and joined the light, their fate would have been even worse than Gotangio's. The Dark Ruler was treated like a ball. Could they, a group of dark giants, truly outmatch Gotangio? Of course, despite being a 5-on-1 battle, Camilla and the other 2 were essentially just watching from the sidelines. Despite having already forsaken their former selves, their current strength still limited the damage they could inflict on Gotangio, forcing Seiya and Shining Tiga to provide the primary damage. Yet, despite the limited damage inflicted, Camilla and the other 2 continued to relentlessly pummel Gotangio. After all, they were the ruler of darkness, the evil god Gotangio. Perhaps, millions of years from now, legends would circulate about them, along with Hela and Tiga, defeating the evil god Gotangio and saving the world. What? You're calling them scoundrels? And they were once Dark Titans? Then Hitler and Darum would have to argue their case. Did they participate in the battle against Gotangio? And the Dark Titans, they've now forsaken their former selves and are now saving the world. Isn't this the same scenario Dark Tiga used to play? Regardless of whether he's a major player or not, in the future, when I'm in the Giant of Light circle, I'll tell everyone I know that I once beat Gotangio to pulp. How many people can boast like that? Gotenjia is feeling incredibly frustrated right now. Camilla and the other three are fine, the damage they inflicted on him is minimal, but Shining Tiga is different from Shining Hela. No, Shining Tiga isn't much worse. Even after gaining the power of the Light of Hope, it can already inflict damage, but having absorbed the dark energies of Camilla and the other two, it could actually stand a chance against Shining Tiga. Even if I couldn't defeat Shining Tiga, I could still escape. But Shining Hela was simply too formidable. I'd already used every ounce of my strength to survive, and with the dark energies absorbed from Camilla and the others, it simultaneously extended multiple tentacles to attack, forcing even Shining Tiga to retreat. But the Shining Helio didn't even try to dodge, and even when facing the tentacles that were entangled towards him, he used violence to tear them off. The terrifying power was simply unbelievable to Gotenjia. Chapter 259 The Powerful Shining Helio. As several of its tentacles were violently ripped off by Shining Helio, Gotenjia let out a loud wail. To escape, it unhesitatingly used its ultimate weapon, Petrifying Ray. However, Shining Tiga seemed prepared. Almost as soon as Gotenjia unleashed a dark purple beam from its mouth, Shining Tiga blocked Seiya's path, gathering a massive amount of light. With Tiga's signature L sign, Shining Za's Pelion Ray, a fatal blow at least 10 times more powerful than before, erupted from Shining Za's hand and collided with Gotenjia's dark purple beam. Having absorbed the dark energy of Camilla and the other two, Gotenjia was no longer vulnerable to Shining Za's attack as in the original story. His Petrifying Ray collided with Shining Za's Pelion Ray, unleashing a powerful shockwave that instantly repelled everyone around him. As everyone retreated, Gotenjia seized this golden opportunity, preparing to plunge his massive body once more into the depths. But just as he was about to descend, a figure approached him at breakneck speed, crouching down and embracing his massive shell. Gotenjia, sensing the Shining Helio's intentions, felt a wave of disdain. Facing two steroid-fueled light giants simultaneously, even Gotenjia could only temporarily avoid the onslaught. But this light giant was taking itself too seriously. While its dark ruler of mobility might be limited, its defense and strength were unmatched. Its body was already halfway submerged, with only its hardest shell visible above the surface. And yet, this light giant was actually attempting to lift itself out of the water, a sheer presumption. Not to mention its immense strength, its weight alone weighs a staggering 200,000 tons. Even 10 titans of light, let alone one, would be unrealistic in their attempts to lift it. Gotenjia remained unfazed by the Shining Helio, who was attempting to lift it. He even used his few remaining tentacles to entangle Seiya's body and engage in a grappling match. If the opponent was seeking his own demise, Gotenjia could certainly satisfy him. Taking on two shining titans of light simultaneously might be difficult for Gotenjia, but if he could drag one into the depths of the ocean, he might be able to stage a comeback. Once in the pitch-black depths of the sea, it was its home turf. Even the most formidable opponent would struggle in the depths, leaving it vulnerable to attack. Seeing Seiya entangled by Gotenjia's tentacles and realizing he was trying to drag his comrades into the depths, Tiga, with his radiant blade in hand, stepped forward, ready to sever the tentacles wrapped around Seiya. But before he could react, he saw a scene that stunned everyone. Gotenjia, having initially thought Seiya was overreaching and attempting to pull him deeper into the sea, suddenly felt a powerful resistance blocking its descent. Even more horrifying, the resistance grew stronger, not only preventing it from diving, but even its massive body, already half submerged, began to slowly lift up. Water poured down Gotenjia like a waterfall, and as he felt the weightlessness of his body, he began to panic and fear. Honestly, Tiga and Camilla, standing nearby, could fully understand Gotenjia's panic and fear. After all, no one could have imagined that a creature weighing 200,000 tons would actually be lifted high above someone's head. Camilla and the other two only knew Seiya was strong, but they hadn't imagined he could be so incredibly powerful. Darim, known as the Giant Warrior, looked at Seiya with the admiration of a young fanboy. Hero was nothing compared to this pervert. Darim even thought that Seiya in this state could kill him with a single flick of his finger if he really wanted to. Not to mention Camilla and the other two, even Dago, the one within Tiga, was stunned by the scene before him. Just now, while in Shining Tiga's form, his punches and kicks had inflicted damage on Gotenjia, but they couldn't even break its massive size. At 200 meters long, 150 meters tall, And weighing 200,000 tons, Gotenjia was still a massive colossus compared to even the 120-meter shining Tiga. But such a behemoth, now forcibly lifted from the sea, isn't that outrageous? The lifted Gotenjia was still struggling, spewing a vast black mist of plasma from its carapace, attempting to envelop and burn Seiya, forcing him to lower it. Unfortunately, the mist was dispelled by the golden light emanating from his body before it could even reach Seiya. As Seiya exerted force with both arms, violently hurling the lifted Gotenjia into the air, Gotenjia felt only regret and resentment. Wasn't it better to just sleep peacefully in the Luluai ruins? Why did he have to come out and die? Tiga is fine, but who the hell is this helot? Such a formidable being among the giants of light. Who can tell them how the dark giants defeated the light giants 30 million years ago? As Gotenjia was thrown into the air, Seiya looked at Tiga and the others present. After nodding, they all simultaneously unleashed their special moves. When the 5 rays of light, 2 large and 3 small, converged and transformed into a multicolored beam, striking Gotenjia's soft underbelly beneath its shell, its body erupted in dazzling light. A blinding white light enveloped the surroundings, accompanied by a violent earthquake. The evil god Gotenjia's body was instantly shattered mid-air. The light, like the exploding white sun, now seemed to rip through the darkness like a sharp sword, dispersing the black fog that had enveloped the entire world and allowing golden sunlight to once again illuminate the land. Following Gotenjia's destruction, the Luluai ruins, previously exposed above the surface, sank once again into the depths of the sea under the aftermath of the impact. The radiant Hira and Tiga gradually lost their light, returning to their original forms. The light on Tiga's body once again responded to the children, and the light on Seiya's body turned into the shadows of super ancient warriors. After nodding to Seiya, they also turned into golden particles and dissipated in the air. Chapter 260 ends. Camilla has a lot of new rivals. When all was lost, Seiya and Dago reappeared in the sunset, while Camilla and the other two had already left. Dago's expression was filled with emotion as he watched the radiant light rod in his hand turn to stone. With the power of the children's light of hope, Tiga was resurrected and transformed into shining Tiga. However, after defeating Gotenjia, the power of light was completely depleted. The radiant light rod might one day be restored, but Dago didn't know if he would ever see that day. Although he could no longer transform into Tiga, Dago had no regrets about the choice he made. Even if he was no longer Tiga, he would continue to protect humanity and the earth as a human being. Because in that final moment, Dago understood one thing: not only was he chosen by Tiga, the light, but as long as there was hope, everyone could become light. Looking at Dago, who was holding the stone-turned divine light rod and had a complicated expression on his face, Seiya couldn't help but tease him. Don't you feel quite regretful? Your true identity has just been exposed, and before you could show off in front of others, you lost this power. If Lena knew that you were Tiga, it would probably give you a lot of points, right? After all, beautiful women have always liked heroes since ancient times. Hearing Seiya's teasing, Dago, who thought he had let it go, suddenly felt uncomfortable again. Yes, if he had known this earlier, he would have shown off in front of others more times. Now, his identity has been exposed, but his power is gone. He has no place to pretend in the future. It's not just me. You won't be able to transform into Hercules in the future, right? So I'm not the only one who's suffering. After hearing what Dago said, Seiya put down the transformation badge that he was about to take out, and then said in an indifferent tone, "What I say doesn't matter. After all, I'm different from you. I have an overflowing sense of justice, and I always fight small monsters like a model worker. Now that the identity has been exposed, with such power, no one can avoid becoming a tool or a laborer for senior leaders in the future, so in my opinion, losing power is not necessarily a bad thing. Besides, there is no overtime pay for fighting monsters, and I'm not like you who hope to win the favor of girls and get a high salary by lying down. That's my dream." After hearing what Seiya said, Dago couldn't help rolling his eyes, and in the end he still said the doubts he had always had. "So, what on earth was it about you that was chosen by such a powerful giant of light, Hira?" Seiya, "Probably because I'm handsome enough." Recalling the discovery of the 3 giant stone statues in the Pyramid of Light, Seiya wondered how Dago was chosen by Tiga. However, he did say that when his plane was about to crash, he forgot his chance to parachute and forcibly redirected the plane's trajectory to prevent it from hitting a mother and daughter standing in front of a house. At that time, Seiya hadn't yet entered the shared power between heart and dream, so if the plane had crashed to the ground, he would have likely perished as well. But just as he was about to fall, a flash of white light enveloped his vision. By the time he realized what was happening, the Heian had already landed, and a badge had appeared on his hand. Seiya had always believed that his decision to avoid the mother and daughter wasn't due to any noble character, but rather because he felt that for them, the entire situation was nothing more than an unprovoked disaster. If his own mistake had led to the mother and daughter's death, what difference would that make him killing them? Seiya admitted he wasn't a saint, unable to possess Deiko's selfless character. If other factors had led to their tragic deaths, he wouldn't have risked his own life to save them. But if their misfortune had been his own, he couldn't let their deaths justify his own mistakes. So, not only Deiko, but even Seiya at the time was puzzled. He had simply made the choice he believed was right, so why had Helio chosen him? Did he have that kind of selfless potential? No, no, no. If it had been someone else who had crashed into the mother and daughter, he would have most likely chosen to stand by and watch, unable to ensure his own safety. Seiya, Deiko, I'm so glad you're safe too. As Seiya and Deiko chatted, the rest of the victory team finally arrived, overjoyed to see them both safe and sound. Seiya, you've kept us in the dark for so long. We never thought you'd be Ultraman hero. And Mayumi already knew your identity, so you've been hiding it from me, haven't you? After this incident, the identities of Seiya and Deiko were finally known to the victory team. Deiko's side aside, Shinjo's side actually clamped his arm around Seiya's neck in frustration. It's unclear whether it was because the other aliens were wary of the lingering power of Hiro and Tiga after Gotenji's destruction, or for some other reason, but the victory team experienced a long hiatus after Gotenji's destruction. Deiko and Lina eventually married, and Camilla, having long since moved on, has gradually adapted to her life on Earth and has become an accomplished fashion designer. Camilla's abandonment of her obsession with Tiga was partly due to her own change of heart, but also because she had a new partner. However, this particular target of hers presented a somewhat thorny situation. Besides the other man's own issues, she also faced two other rivals. One was a human from Earth, a nurse. The other was an alien, barely above the level of a human, now a superstar singer. After letting go of that scumbag Tiga, Camilla's current target was Hiro, also known as Seiya. Since ancient times, women have admired the strong, and after being defeated by Seiya and then witnessing Hiro defeat Gotenji, Camilla was completely captivated. However, just as she was about to attack Seiya, she was shocked to discover that compared to 30 million years ago, she now had two more rivals. In a contest of strength, Mayumi and Maya combined, multiplied 100-fold, would clearly not be Camilla's match. But this was a relationship, not a fight. While Camilla had some experience in relationships, she was 30 million years behind, making her no match for Mayumi and Maya. These two bitches, one knows how to act like a spoiled brat, the other knows how to play to Seiya's preferences. Camilla is now spending all day with the romance books Hitler and Darren bought, and it's giving her a headache. If she wasn't as strong as Seiya, Camilla would have even considered teaming up with Hitler and Darren to kidnap Seiya and rape him. Unfortunately, ever since seeing Hiro beat Gotenji like a son, Hitler and Darren are now as timid as a brother to Seiya. Chapter 261, Sword World, plans to reopen the Sword Gym. Tokyo, Wenrin Genjutsu Dojo. Looking at his childhood sweetheart, Suguha Kirito, who was tidying up the empty heart-shaped bento boxes on the table, Seiya said a little embarrassedly, "Suguha, my health is actually fine now. You don't have to work so hard every day to prepare bento for me." Hearing Seiya's words, Suguha Kirito, who was originally tidying up the empty boxes, paused, then said with a somewhat dejected expression, "Brother Seiya, do you think Suguha's bento is not to your taste?" Seeing the somewhat lost look on the girl in front of him, Seiya naturally waved his hands repeatedly and said, "No, no, no, Suguha's bento is delicious, but I feel embarrassed to keep bothering you like this. When I was trapped in Sao, you took care of me for so long. Now that I've woken up, you still take care of me so attentively, making me feel like a useless person. And that guy Kazuto just woke up recently, right? Is it really okay for you to come to me every few days like this?" Seiya is truly grateful to Suguha Kirito. In fact, he even feels that their feelings for him are deeper than Asuna's. Seiya and Asuna might have had a relationship in the game that was more than just friendship, but that was ultimately in game. Now that they've returned to reality, Seiya honestly doesn't know whether Asuna will maintain their in-game relationship. He previously helped Asuna with the Sugao Nobuyuki incident because of their friendship, and she had indeed helped him greatly in SAO. As for Suguha Kiritani, even Seiya, a staunch straight man, can now vaguely sense her feelings for him. Previously, he simply viewed Suguha as a girl next door who grew up with him, and he assumed she felt the same way. But since escaping SAO, Seiya suddenly realized that things weren't as simple as he'd imagined. For over a year since he'd been trapped in SAO, Suguha had been caring for him attentively. To say he merely considered himself brother was a bit far-fetched. Even Suguha's legitimate brother, Kirito-san, didn't receive such treatment. Hearing Seiya's praise for his delicious bento, Suguha's expression brightened instantly. Then, standing up, hands on his hips, he said, "Kazutoni has mother to take care of him, so there's nothing to worry about. Besides, Seiya has only just recovered. If I don't bring a bento every day, you'll probably be eating junk food like instant noodles every other day, right? Seiya, who is still recovering, needs to focus on nutrition first." Seiya couldn't argue with Suguha's words. After all, he was a complete food idiot. He couldn't afford to go to a family restaurant every day, and if he wasn't ordering takeout, he often relied on instant noodles to make ends meet. "Then I'll go to school first. I'll come back in the evening. If you have time, Seiya, you can go to the market and buy some fresh ingredients." After packing up her lunchbox, Suguha didn't give Seiya any reason to refuse before rushing downstairs. Although the players trapped in SAO have now returned to the real world, most are still recuperating at home after being trapped in the game for over a year. Especially since the majority of the players trapped in SAO were young, their academic progress has fallen behind their peers over the past 2 years. The authorities seem to have opened a special school specifically to accommodate these SAO players who are struggling academically. However, since most SAO players are still recuperating, the school hasn't officially reopened yet, leaving Seiya, now completely idle and on leave. With nothing else to do, he'd considered reopening his family's swordsmanship gym after nearly 2 years trapped in the game. He was now barely old enough to run a gym. As for the relevant licenses and permits, he could ask Asuna's father, Yuoki Shazo, for help. Furthermore, while he was still young, he had at least won the National Kendo Championship for middle school students, so recruiting younger apprentices shouldn't be a problem. But just as Seiya came up with his idea and was about to put it into action, he found himself facing a major obstacle. He was desperately short of money. Of course, his lack of money wasn't so severe that it would affect his daily life. In fact, if he only considered daily needs, he had plenty of money. During his time trapped in SAO, he had run a trade association and borrowed money from loan sharks. As he had anticipated, while many of those who borrowed money did die in the game, a significant number survived. Because they had signed the relevant contracts, when Seiya came to collect the debt, the vast majority chose not to refuse. Many were even grateful to him and paid him a considerable amount of interest. Remember, in the early days of SAO, due to the difficulty of exploring the game and lack of experience, most people couldn't even afford to hunt monsters, let alone the so-called hunger level. The funds Seiya lent helped most people get through the early stages. Furthermore, Seiya ultimately defeated the main boss, Kayaba Akihiko. It's no exaggeration to say that Seiya saved many SAO players' lives. For this reason, when Seiya came to collect the debt, most people showed no impatience, and were even extremely grateful and polite. Of course, there were a few who simply refused to see him. For these people, Seiya didn't pursue them further, but simply walked away. After all, human nature is diverse, and Seiya couldn't guarantee that everyone would be grateful and honest. The world is full of deadbeats and those who repay kindness with enmity, but overall, the end result left Seiya quite satisfied. Besides the principal he lent, he also made an additional 60% profit. There are those who refuse to acknowledge their debts and remain indoors, but there are also those who, even in death, entrust their friends and families with a repayment of their debts. While some initially thought Seiya's loan sharking was foolish, he has no regrets about it. Regardless of whether he made a profit or those who defaulted, the mere fact that those who kept their promises, even to the point of death, and the many more who survived because of it, makes Seiya feel that his actions were worth it. Chapter 262, Master Tong's strongest woman arrives. Logically speaking, Seiya, having not only recovered the principal he borrowed but also earned a 60% profit, should be well off now. However, After paying off the various nutritional supplements and other expenses he had incurred during his year-plus in-game confinement, Seiya suddenly realized he was even poorer than before entering SAO. Although the electronics manufacturer Argus had assumed some responsibility for the SAO accident and covered a portion of the medical expenses, that was only a small portion. Since his grandfather's passing, much of the equipment at his family's dojo hadn't been maintained. If they wanted to reopen the dojo, they'd need to completely replace it for safety reasons, which would be a hefty expense. Damn it. I'm practically unrivaled in this world, and now I'm still worried about money. Should I just go big? No. If I really do that, I'll have absolutely no principles. Just as Seiya was worrying about the funds to reopen the kendo dojo, even debating whether to ask Yunuki Shazo for directions, there was a sudden knock on the door of his downstairs dojo. Seiya was quite curious about the sudden knock. Since they didn't socialize much, their family rarely had visitors. The only people who usually visited were Kirito and Suguha. Kirito was probably still recovering at home or in the hospital, while Suguha felt like she had her own house. With a spare key, she didn't even need to knock. At first, Seiya thought it was Yuuki Shazo or his wife Yuuki Kyoko. Because ever since Seiya visited the Yuuki family, Asuna's parents seemed to treat him in an unusually nice way. He asked Yuuki Shazo to handle the gym license issue, and Yuuki Shazo agreed without hesitation, even using his connections to handle the matter the next day. Asuna's mother, Yuuki Kyoko, also visited Seiya's home once during this period, and after touring Seiya's house as if inspecting it, she finally left with a pleasant conversation with Seiya. However, it was not until Seiya arrived at the gym gate that he realized that the visitor this time was not the Yuuki couple, but a man named Kikuoka Sujiro. You must be Wenrin-kun, right? My name is Kikuoka Sujiro, an officer in Team 2 of the Advanced Communications Network Promotion Section, Dynamic Infrastructure Bureau, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. I've heard of you before, from the events of SAO and ALO, so I've taken the liberty of visiting you. Is it convenient for us to talk? Seiya was taken aback when he saw the young man before him, dressed in a neat suit and wearing thick-framed glasses, who exuded a serious and earnest air. Seiya knew Kikuoka Sujiro, of course. Wasn't he Kirito's hand-picked pimp? Why had he come to him instead of a Kirito? The reason he called Kikuoka Sujiro a pimp was because, after the events of SAO, in almost every virtual game world Kirito entered, such as ALO, GGO, and even Underworld, it was this man, Kikuoka Sujiro, who was in front of him, who was responsible for the connection. Besides Asuna, whom he met in SAO, Kirito later met the cryptic Suguha in ALO, Fairy Dance, hooked up with Shino in GGO, Ghost Bullet, and found his childhood sweetheart, the artificial Flucklight Alice, in Underworld. Simply put, Kirito almost always has a new wife in each virtual game world, and the person responsible for pulling the strings and getting Kirito to these virtual game worlds is Kikuoka Sujiro. So, in his previous life, Seiya would habitually call Kikuoka Sujiro a pimp when watching anime. To be frank, Kikuoka Sujiro is absolutely instrumental in Kirito's vast harem. Even though he only appears briefly in the plot, without him, how could Kirito have met so many beautiful women? Seiya used to joke that if he had a wingman like Kikuoka Sujiro, he wouldn't be single until now. But Seiya had never imagined that the strongest pimp, no, the strongest wingman, had not gone to find Mr. Kirito, but now came to his house to find him. Wenrin-kun, here are my relevant documents. If you really doubt my identity, you can also use it as a phone call to ask questions. Seeing Seiya looking at him in silence, Kikuoka Sujiro thought that the other party was questioning his identity, so he quickly took out his relevant documents and spoke. I'm sorry, I'm not questioning Mr. Kikuoka's identity. I'm just a little confused about what someone from the Advanced Communications Network Promotion section of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications wants to talk to me about, because the other party's unit name was so long, Seiya hadn't even remembered it all. However, as a time traveler, he knew that this identity was only the surface identity. The other party's true identity was actually a lieutenant colonel in the self-defense forces. He'd just been thinking about making a big splash, but before he'd even begun, a self-defense force lieutenant colonel showed up. Don't worry about that, Wenrin-kun. I'm not looking for you this time because you've done anything bad. I just need your help. Kikuoka Sujiro, who entered Seiya's home next, explained the reason for his visit, just as Seiya had expected. Since Sao pioneered the full dive virtual game 2 years ago, a wide variety of virtual stealth games have emerged. Besides Alo, which recently ceased operations due to the crimes of its main operator, the most popular stealth game in Japan is Gun Gale Online. Gun Gale Online, or GGO for short, is a virtual world dominated by guns and steel, unlike the sword-themed SAO and the magic-themed Alo. Here, players compete for the title of the best shooter, and the game system allows, and even encourages, player-versus-player duels. The official operator of the game holds various tournaments to attract players from time to time, but some time ago, this virtual game that is currently popular all over the country encountered some unexpected situations. Or to be more precise, it should be said that Kikuoka Sujiro and his team, who are in charge of the cybersecurity division of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, discovered something strange. A gamer named Deathgun suddenly appeared in the last GGO tournament, and the opponents who were shot by him in the game also died at home in reality. And the cause of their death was a sudden heart failure. Moreover, if these deceased players had a history of heart disease, it would be fine, but these people were originally quite healthy. There was even a professional player among them. The other party had a strong psychological quality, and it was impossible for him to die of cardiac arrest due to the excessive stimulation of the shooting game. Chapter 263, Shingaya, I can work, but I want more money. So the main reason you came this time is that you want me to go into this virtual game, GGO, and help you investigate who this Deathgun is, and whether he's the murderer. As a time traveler, Seiya already knew Deathgun's identity. But as the saying goes, to catch a thief, you have to take the stolen goods. Even if he revealed Deathgun's true identity now, without evidence, not even the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications could arrest the so-called Deathgun. And even if Seiya revealed Deathgun's true identity now, would Kikuoka Sujiro believe him? How could he explain his knowledge of Deathgun's affairs? That's right, because I've heard of Winrin-kun's outstanding performance in SAO. Even in the recent Alo incident, it was thanks to your reminder that Yuki-san was able to successfully identify the black sheep, Sugo Nobuyuki. Whether it's your gaming skills or your investigative and responsibilities, we at the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications Cybersecurity Division believe that you, Winrin-kun, are the perfect candidate for this investigation. According to the Cybersecurity Division's current investigation, Deathgun is an extremely proud and lawless individual. He would look down upon minor figures, and through his psychological profiling, the division also believes that this arrogant and perverted Deathgun is also a perfect criminal. He executes his targets in public, fulfilling certain conditions to satisfy his desire for performance. Based on these factors, the division speculates that if Deathgun makes his next appearance, it will be at the Bullet of Bullets, Bob, PvP tournament next month, where the best shooter will be chosen. As for the Bob competition, basically any GGO player can participate. It is not easy to find the Deathgun among the huge number of players based on this factor alone. However, Kikuoka Sujiro and his colleagues believe that with the level and strength of the Deathgun, it is not difficult for the other party to pass the preliminaries. It is even better to say that the Deathgun will only really start to act in the finals. The preliminaries do not attract much attention, and with the proud character of the Deathgun, the other party should not take action at that time. As for why Kikuoka Sujiro still wants to ask Seiya for help, even though he already has a direction for investigation, the main reason is that Kikuoka Sujiro and his colleagues do not even have the strength to pass the Bob preliminaries. Just because they're in charge of network security doesn't mean they're all gamers. I understand most of what's going on, and while I'd love to help, I'm sure Mr. Kikuoka understands as well. This unknown player called Deathgun is clearly a dangerous character. I played SAO, the death game, because I had no choice, and I fought Nobuyuki Sugo for my imprisoned friend. But this time, Deathgun doesn't seem to have much to do with me, right? I'm still just a student. Mr. Kikuoka, you're putting me up against such a dangerous person. Don't you feel guilty? Hearing Seiya's words, Kikuoka Sujiro's face suddenly turned serious. We understand this investigation mission is quite dangerous for you. But don't worry about your personal safety. We'll prepare special stealth equipment for you, and nurses will be by your side to provide close protection while you're stealthed. Since the SAO incident, MMO games have come under strict government scrutiny. Tampering with a NERvGear helmet, as Kayaba Akihiko did, is nearly impossible. Therefore, Kikuoka Sugiro believed that the other party's ability to kill in the virtual game likely stemmed from something they had done to the player in the real world. They hadn't yet investigated the specifics of their operation, but as long as they provided constant protection for Seiya during his time undercover, his safety would be guaranteed. Seiya, already well aware of Death Gun's killing methods, naturally had no concerns for his own life. He hadn't actually considered the danger to his life when he mentioned the mission, but rather to warn the other party of other issues. Unfortunately, Kikuoka Sugiro seemed quite clueless. Kikuoka, the favor you want me to do is very dangerous. And since it's a request, you can't just ask me to do it for free, right? Even part-time supermarket workers earn a good hourly wage these days, let alone something this dangerous? A look of realization crossed Kikuoka's face as Seiya practically stated this. While he didn't understand why a boy of Seiya's age would be so materialistic, it didn't matter. Their unit had plenty of funds, and as long as Seiya didn't refuse their help, it was fine. Hearing the generous payment, Seiya was no longer sleepy. Sure, he'd help, but he wouldn't work for free, and such a dangerous commission demanded a premium. A few minutes later, having finalized the details, Kikuoka Sugiro finally left the Wenrin family's kendo gym. As he left, Kikuoka shook his head and chuckled bitterly. This kid is truly obsessed with money. He actually refused the safe house enners we offered, even saying he wanted to cash them out. However, thanks to Kikuoka's insistence, Seiya's location was changed from the safe house to his own home, but the nurse who was responsible for Seiya's safety remained. Because those killed by the death gun had all died of cardiac arrest, medical care was essential for Seiya's safety. While the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications Cybersecurity Division wanted to find the death gun, they wouldn't completely disregard the safety of a single young man. After seeing Kikuoka Sugiro off, Seiya looked at the check he'd left behind, a smile that radiated to this day on his face. Now there were funds for the gym renovations and new equipment. Kikuoka Sugiro wasn't just a matchmaker, he was also the god of wealth. Looking at the large sum of money he'd just received, Seiya felt incredibly confident, and remembering Suku's instructions, he headed straight for the market. You're just lying at home, and money's falling from the sky. You have to have a little extra tonight. Death Gun was a dangerous man, and this investigation might be life-threatening? Just kidding. Seiya just wanted to pay more, and said that to Kikuoka Sugiro. He knew Death Gun's true identity, so why would he go to a safe house? He was just lurking in his own home, and he'd even provided his real address when registering for the competition. If Death Gun dared to come, he'd make sure he knew what true danger was. Just two ordinary human scum, coming to his house to look for him. What's the difference between this and coming here to get killed? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, First Sneak into GGO, Ghost Bullet activated. GGO differs from SAO. Although both are MMO full stealth virtual games, one focuses on cold weapons and swords, while the other focuses on firearms. Naturally, the two offer completely different experiences and control styles. Having already accepted Kikuoka Sugiro's commission, he must at least make a show of reaching the Bob finals, ultimately using his exceptional deductions to identify the mastermind, Death Gun. The Bob competition is still some time away, but Seiya, who has never played GGO, naturally needs to familiarize himself with the game's controls. So, that evening, Seiya engaged in stealth for the second time since SAO. Link start, watching Seiya, donning the NERvGear and lying in bed in stealth mode. A nearby nurse, her hair tied in a dangerous hairstyle, lifted Seiya's shirt and attached sensor patches for various medical devices. Players shot by Death Gun have all died from sudden heart failure. That's why Kikuoka Sugiro had a nurse named Angie constantly checking Seiya's safety using the data from the equipment. It's quite astonishing. Wenrin-kun was one of the players trapped in SAO earlier, wasn't he? Even though it's been months, most of the players are still recuperating, and many with poor physical fitness are still emaciated. But Wenrin-kun's condition is far healthier than even those who exercise regularly. Watching Nurse Angie apply the sensor patch to Seiya's upper body, her face filled with amazement at Seiya's streamlined muscles, Sukuha Kirito, who was standing nearby, immediately became displeased. Ms. Angie, You're a nurse, not a nympho, right? Don't touch Seiya while he's in stealth. Seiya had also fully informed Suguha Kirito about the death gun incident in GGO. There was no way he could hide it from Suguha, who kept visiting him. Initially, Suguha was furious that her brother, Seiya, had agreed to such a dangerous undertaking without telling her. After all, they had finally escaped the death game, only to be confronted with a dangerous death gun. However, Seiya had already agreed, stating that he accepted the commission in order to reopen the gym, leaving Suguha unable to argue. While she couldn't change Seiya's decision, Suguha felt that his safety must be given utmost priority. Upon returning home, she told her mother that she planned to stay at the gym to ensure Seiya's safety. Unfortunately, her request was rejected the moment she made it. The reason was simple: Seiya and Suguha were childhood sweethearts and had a close relationship, and Suguha's mother was quite confident in Seiya's character. The problem was that both Seiya and Suguha were now high school students. It would have been fine if Seiya had family, but now he lived alone. Suguha's mother wasn't worried about Seiya, she was simply worried about her daughter losing control. They were still children, so what if something went wrong? Furious at her mother's rejection, Suguha rushed to Seiya's house, where she was met by a blonde nurse with a voluptuous figure and a mature demeanor. When Seiya announced that the nurse, named Angie, would remain by his side while he was undercover, Suguha's nerves were flaring. I can easily protect Seiya alone. My kendo skills have improved tremendously in the past 2 years. Nurse Angie, watching the jealous girl before her, couldn't help but smile. But Seiya-kun seemed to have just told me that your mother wouldn't approve of you, a girl. Staying at another boy's house, Suguha was even more furious when she heard the nurse, who had only just met Seiya, begin addressing him by name. Seiya and I are childhood sweethearts. We grew up together, so even staying over is no problem. Suguha looked at the nurse before her and reached out to remove her hand, which was still resting on Seiya's abs, as if asserting her dominance. Tisk, 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 tisk. You're talking about staying over, so that's something you did when you were little, right? But you're all grown up now. And Suguha-chan, haven't you heard the saying? Childhood sweethearts can't compare to the one that drops from the sky. Seeing the girl in love before her, Angie couldn't help but tease her. After all, the night was long, and at least she had someone to talk to when she was on duty at the hospital. Being alone here was just too boring. Asuna, she's right, I'm the one that drops from the sky. Just as Suguha decided to stay over at the gym tonight, even at the risk of having her legs broken. After all, her brother Seiya had been completely taken advantage of by the other party. Seiya also dived into the so-called GGO. As with most RPGs, character creation requires players to register an ID. This time, Seiya once again used his real name, Wenren Shengaya. This was partly because he was terrible at naming things, and partly because he knew Death Gun was a survivor from Sao, so using this name would at least attract attention. After all, his saint reputation, while not necessarily a household name in other MMOs, was certainly well known in Sao. Unlike other MMOs, GGO's character creation process didn't involve complex face shaping. Instead, the system randomly selected a virtual body during character creation. So, as Seiya completed the character creation process, a blonde-haired young man appeared on the streets of GGO. After completing character creation, Seiya glanced at his own reflection in the glass and felt a pang of shame. If he remembered correctly, in the original story, when Kirito created his character, the virtual body he obtained was M9000, which was said to be a super rare virtual body. Its characteristics were its petite figure. Although it was a male, it had the appearance of a beautiful girl. When he saw his own virtual body, although it did not turn into a transvestite, Seiya was relieved. But now, in the reflection of the glass, the figure of this sunny boy with a height of only 1.2 meters and bright blonde hair also made Seiya speechless. Forget it, let him be a boy. It's not the first time I see myself as a boy. As long as he still has a penis, everything is fine. Chapter 265, Super Rare Character Virtual Body? Seiya's sudden appearance on the bustling street wasn't surprising, considering players' logins and logouts were often so elusive. But when his less than 5 feet tall figure appeared among the crowd, many people's attention was immediately drawn. Hey, could that be that? It should be. It's similar to the official description. I thought these avatars only existed in legends, but it turns out they really exist. Maybe he's just a child? After all, The SNS 404 avatar hasn't appeared in GGO yet, idiot. Don't you know that GGO, unlike other MMOs, forbids underage players from playing stealth due to its heavy use of firearms? And even if a real-life dwarf were to enter GGO, do you think he could adjust his height due to the avatar setting? The discerning Seiya listened to the discussions around him, then glanced at the SNS 404 marking on his avatar and understood. It seems that he was lucky enough to get a very rare avatar at the beginning, just like Kirito. However, after taking a look at himself in the reflection of the glass, Seiya had to complain about one thing. What kind of people are the game planners of GGO? Kirito's M9000 avatar with a sissy style and his own SNS 404 with a Shoto style are both super rare avatars. And the macho avatars that he thinks are more handsome are actually ordinary avatars in GGO. Is the XP of the planners and operators of this game really normal? Hey, if I'm not mistaken, your avatar should be SNS 404, right, facing the passerby who came forward to talk to him. Seiya did not hide it, but nodded directly. After Seiya's affirmative response, the surrounding passersby were instantly excited. Many middlemen even rubbed their hands together and approached Seiya, saying, "Hey, are you selling this account? I'll buy it for 5 million, get lost. You're just taking advantage of me because I'm new here. Aren't you taking advantage of me because I don't know the ropes? That's the price for a normal rare avatar. But SNS 404 is an ultra-rare avatar, never before seen in GGO. It's worth at least 10 million, honestly." When Seiya heard these people's offers, he was genuinely tempted. Just a newly created character account worth 10 million? Just the value of this account alone was far more than the reward Kikuoka Sejiro had promised him. I have a question for everyone. Do GGO's rare avatars have any special abilities compared to regular avatars? Because his account was linked to SAO, Seiya had no plans to sell it, but that didn't stop him from taking the opportunity to learn more about GGO's gameplay. GGO isn't some fantasy MMO. All characters have the same stats, and there's no level division. In this world of guns and mechas, the only things that determine victory or defeat in PvP are the player's own skill and the difference in their weapons. There were no level settings or differences in character attributes, meaning the only thing that distinguished veteran players from newcomers was their skill. For a game that prioritized fair PvP, Seiya wasn't surprised by the setting. However, if there's no difference in character attributes, why are rare avatars more valuable? It can't just be their rarity, right? If other players had standard avatars, and you had a rare avatar, it would seem like you were using a skin to stand out from the crowd. But if it were simply for the sake of attention, Seiya thought the price was a bit too outrageous. Previously, when he was watching anime, Seiya had wondered why Kirito's M9000 avatar was so expensive. Surely players just liked effeminate characters? So today, he decided to find out. Super rare avatars, if they were just for collectible value, naturally wouldn't command such a high price. However, for some special avatars, like the M9000 and your current SNS 404, they do command such a high price. Don't forget, due to the balanced character attributes, whether it's a burly man or a swashbuckling avatar like you, without equipment, there won't be a significant difference in speed, strength, or endurance. Even if some avatars have certain bonuses to their attributes, the difference isn't drastic. And in gun games, do you think being large or being small is more advantageous? The other person's explanation gave Seiya a look of sudden enlightenment. Indeed, since the initial character stats are roughly the same, a smaller avatar model is naturally harder to hit in a shooter game and also makes it easier to find cover. Take, for example, a GGO player skilled in sniping rifles. Their chances of hitting a 1.2 meter tall boy at long range are almost double that of a 2 meter tall man. Because of his short stature, Seiya's avatar doesn't even need to dodge even low height projectiles. Similarly, Kirito's M9000 avatar is expensive. Besides the bonuses it provides, it's largely due to its small size as a male character. While seemingly devoid of special abilities, a smaller avatar model offers significant advantages over regular avatars. While this might be a standard MMO, GGO is also the only VR MMO in Japan with professional gamers. Because the game utilizes a system that converts in-game currency into real-world currency, high-level players can earn significant amounts of digital currency each month. In game jargon, this is known as moving bricks, Players who consistently achieve high scores in GGO can earn various rare in-game weapons, which they can then sell for digital currency to support their daily lives. Therefore, compared to other MMOs, GGO players are willing to invest a significant amount of time and energy in the game. Possessing a rare avatar is enough to gain a significant advantage in various competitions, especially with an ultra-rare avatar like Seiya's SNS 404. Vendors have no problem selling it, which explains their enthusiasm for Seiya and his willingness to answer every question. Thank you for sharing so much. If I don't want to play GGO anymore, I'll consider selling this avatar to you. Seiya politely thanked the crowd and departed. Now that he had learned the basic settings and controls of GGO from those who had just spoken, it was time to get started. Chapter 266, Close Combat in a Shooting Game? GGO's starting character is given 1,000 credits as initial in-game funds. However, this amount of funds can only purchase a small optical weapon or a vintage live-fire revolver. GGO's firearms are divided into two types. Optical firearms are lightweight and fast, but their drawback is that they are half damaged by the player's shield. Live-fire firearms, on the other hand, do not have this drawback, but for greater fidelity, they require reloading, and their weight and recoil are also significant drawbacks. GGO's in-game currency conversion system naturally allows for in-game purchases. However, Seiya, who obviously plays GGO for the extra cash, is unlikely to actually choose to spend money. If Kikuoka Sujiro could cover the expenses, Seiya wouldn't mind, but that's clearly impossible. After glancing at the gambling game in the mall where Kirito had obtained his initial funding, the one where he had to dodge bullets and touch a cowboy NPC, Seiya finally shook his head and walked into the nearby weapon shop. If you're a beginner, I recommend buying this small blaster. The NPC woman at the weapon shop offered her advice in a very user-friendly manner. For GGO newbies, lightweight, high-accuracy optical guns are more user-friendly, while those who prefer live ammunition are more experienced or professional players. However, Seiya chose not to heed the NPC woman's advice and instead spent 500 credit on the cheapest used revolver in the store. Seiya's choice of a used revolver wasn't meant to show off, but rather because the small blaster she recommended cost 1,000 credit. If he bought that, he would be completely broke. Seiya had deliberately left 500 credit because, besides gambling, he had just noticed on the game interface another way to quickly accumulate money. This method was actually the bounty tournaments often seen in GGO. As a massively multiplayer online role-playing shooter game, in addition to the official major tournaments, there were naturally many PvP tournaments where players would gamble and other smaller official tournaments. The bounty tournament Seiya had just seen on the game interface was one of these official smaller tournaments. A total of 100 players would be transported to a map and compete until the final winner emerged. The entry fee was 500 credit. If eliminated, the player would lose everything, but if they managed to survive to the end, they would receive 100,000 credit. The combination of upfront funding and the opportunity to hone their skills seemed perfect to Seiya, so he entered without hesitation. After paying the 500 credit entry fee, a countdown screen quickly appeared before Seiya. When the countdown in front of him reached 0 hours, his body was teleported directly into a desert. As Seiya appeared in the desert, before he could even check his surroundings, an infrared beam appeared directly on him. Almost instantly, sensing danger, Seiya leaped and rolled, dodging a machine gun fire from a man not far away. Bullets swished across the desert, sending up a cloud of yellow sand. However, until the man had completely emptied his magazine, he hadn't even touched Seiya. Seeing Seiya's agility, the man was visibly stunned. The machine gun he wielded was a new model with the fastest rate of fire. And almost as he had teleported to the map, he saw Seiya teleporting just behind him. A normal person would have been blasted to pieces in that situation. But that man not only reacted but also perfectly dodged the machine gun fire. What incredible reflexes! GGO's maps are incredibly realistic, which is probably one of the hallmarks of a shooter. Desert terrain is particularly challenging, making cover difficult to find, and the sand beneath your feet significantly hinders movement. The man who had just suddenly attacked Seiya couldn't help but scoff after taking one look at the vintage revolver in his hand. Having seen Seiya's dodging skills, he'd thought he'd faced a master, but after all, he'd discovered he was just a newbie using a beginner's weapon. Don't ask how he knew that. No one would choose such a useless weapon as a vintage revolver. It has a small reload capacity, a short range, and a very slow rate of fire. Because it's vintage, it even occasionally jams and stalls. It's arguably the worst weapon in GGO. No one would even use such a useless thing as a secondary weapon, let alone a primary weapon. His primary weapon, a light machine gun, was a significant advantage. Given the enemy's range and rate of fire, his accuracy was truly impressive. So, after glancing at the distance between Seiya and himself, the opponent, oblivious to the crowd, immediately began to reload. Seiya had never experienced GGO before, but he knew that while the opponent was reloading, it was a good time to strike. Bang, bang, amidst a puff of white smoke, Seiya raised his old revolver and fired 2 shots. Although his current vision was barely different from that of an 8x scope, it proved that in a gunfight, superb vision alone wasn't enough, skill and technique were required. Seiya fired 2 shots in quick succession, one bullet piercing the opponent's crotch, the other successfully hitting the kidney. However, due to the limited damage of the old revolver and the fact that the hits weren't vital, the man hit by Seiya wasn't eliminated, but only had his health bar reduced. Tisk, that lousy luck from the novice protection period. You managed to hit me at this distance with that crappy old revolver. The man didn't seem to expect to be hit, but he wasn't panicking at all, believing it was simply Seiya's bad luck. As long as he finished reloading, the opponent's crappy revolver wouldn't be able to compare. Glancing at the old revolver in his hand, Seiya quickly realized the difference between his weapon and the opponent's. He didn't rush into an attack, but instead sprinted towards the opponent at breakneck speed. What did a low hit rate and short range matter? As long as he fired close, he was sure he wouldn't be able to blow his opponent's head off. The man, noticing Seiya's actions, finished reloading as well. He looked at Seiya charging towards him with a sneer. Idiot. You're still trying to get close in a gunfight game? You really think you're a god of war? Chapter 267. This guy is not just a newbie, he is a master. Gunfire flashed continuously from the muzzle, and bullet casings ricocheted from the enemy's machine gun. Seiya, attempting to approach him, scoffed. At close to medium range, even with trajectory prediction, dodging bullets was incredibly difficult, especially with a machine gun firing at high speed. And don't forget, the map they were currently on was a desert. In such a sandy landscape, even running and sprinting were incredibly difficult, let alone dodging bullets. However, using the most inferior weapon and performing the most inaccurate operations was typical of a newbie. The player, wielding the machine gun and firing furiously at Seiya, seemed to see Seiya's unwillingness to retreat as the bullets continued to rain down. However, his confident expression was short-lived, quickly giving way to astonishment. Seiya, who he had expected to be riddled with bullets, was now dodging a large number of bullets with his diminutive figure, seemingly glimpsing the sand with astonishing speed and skill. Faced with a barrage of bullets, the opponent, while not completely dodging them, only managed to land harmlessly on the target. The machine gun's rapid fire rate meant that a single bullet could hide him, causing limited damage. After about a minute of unleashing the barrage, the player, who had just finished reloading, ran out of ammunition again. Just as he was about to reload, Seiya appeared a meter away. Gazing at the boy's face so close, the opponent shouted, "You monster," and quickly drew his Desert Eagle from his waistband, preparing to fire at Seiya at close range. Unfortunately, just as the opponent's secondary weapon was drawn, Seiya, as if anticipating it, delivered a perfectly timed upperkick, striking the opponent directly in the wrist. GGO is a game centered around guns and steel, but that doesn't mean physical skills are completely useless. A kick to the opponent's wrist, while incapable of damaging him, did manage to knock his weapon out of his hand. At this distance, even an old-fashioned revolver should be able to hide him with my eyes closed. Right, the opponent, already stunned by the weapon's blow, turned back to see the muzzle of the antiquated revolver he had derided as a worthless weapon. Bang! With a resounding gunshot, the man's health bar instantly emptied as he was shot on the head at close range, his body instantly shattered into pieces, and he was eliminated. Even the most shoddy gun can still kill with a single strike to the head. This is the norm in most shooter games. By the time the eliminated player realized what was happening, he had been kicked off the bounty tournament map. His friends, upon seeing how quickly he returned, were surprised and asked, "What happened? This match is over so soon? Is the random map too small, or did you run into a tough opponent?" The player eliminated by Seiya was called Burst Pinero, although not a professional player. He was a well-known player in GGO. Because of his good game sense and excellent equipment, he had usually finished in the top 3 in the weekly bounty tournament, and with a little luck, he could even win. However, this time, he was eliminated shortly after entering the match, which is why his friends were puzzled. Don't even mention it. I encountered a monster this time. He used a vintage revolver, the kind only used by beginners, and instantly killed me. At first, his friends thought he was joking, but soon, noticing his serious expression and no joking intent, they quickly demanded, "Are you sure you're not kidding? With your skill level, and that new machine gun you just got, even a pro player would have a hard time beating you with a vintage revolver, right? And I don't think any of the famous pros in GGO are that kind of prankster. It's no secret that vintage revolvers are the cheapest and most useless weapons in GGO. At 500 grit, they're 500 grit cheaper than a 1000 grit blaster. Even novice players often opt for a blaster, based on the recommendations of NPC shop assistants, rather than a vintage revolver with its limited 6-round capacity, short range, slow rate of fire, and low accuracy. You might not believe this, but judging by his shooting skills alone, I don't think he's a professional player. He even looks like a complete novice. Besides a vintage revolver, he's wearing no armor or other items, not even a secondary weapon. After dodging my machine gun fire twice in a row, he actually approached me with ridiculous movement and speed, and finally shot me in the head with that vintage revolver at close range. After hearing what Raging Benito said, his friends suddenly thought he was making it up. Dodging machine gun fire from 10 meters away, sprinting quickly across a desert map, and finally getting a close-range headshot. Is this still GGO? His nimble movement and incredible sprinting speed aside, dodging machine gun fire is simply outrageous. Is that something human reflexes can achieve? Benito, you're not just embarrassed to be eliminated by a random player. Are you making this up to trick us? Although Balloon Benito described his elimination in considerable detail, his friends simply refused to believe him. But soon, he saw the ID of the player who defeated him in his battle log. In GGO's official tournaments, anyone can enter the opponent's ID to enter spectator mode. When Balloon Benito typed winner in Shangzai into the spectator search bar, a projection screen suddenly appeared in front of them. As the projection screen appeared, several GGO players, including Balloon Benito, saw Seiya, holding a vintage revolver, finish off another player with a single shot. Holy crap! The weapon he's using is actually a used revolver. And that avatar he's using, could it be the SNS 404 that's been making so much noise around the shopping district? Previously, the group of Bursao Benito had suspected Seiya wasn't just a complete novice, but a seasoned pro who was just playing the game. But when a friend of theirs showed them a video of Seiya appearing in the shopping district, they were completely relieved. This Wenren Seiya was just a newbie. After all, if he were a seasoned pro, he wouldn't be asking all these newbie questions. Chapter 268, The Newbie Seiya Who Kills People Indiscriminately in the Competition. Damn, is this guy cheating? He can actually dodge such a dense barrage of bullets without getting hurt, idiot. GGO is currently the most popular MMO in China, and there are many professional players. Where did he get the cheats? 2 more people were killed. Is this guy going to set a record? The first player in GGO history to use a vintage revolver to kill his way through the bounty tournament? Wenren Shanghai? I have never heard of this game ID before. Are you sure it's not a sack puppet of those professional players or great players? Looking at his friend who was shouting beside him, Bao Zhao Tuna was now staring at Shanghai on the projection screen and said, I don't know if he is a great player in other MMO games. But I can be sure that he is definitely a novice in GGO, because compared to when he played against me, his operation and shooting skills have improved a lot. This guy is familiarizing himself with the game at an astonishing speed. Compared to the one who just killed me, he is now a completely different person. In reality, those watching Seiya weren't just Bakuzao Benito and the others. Those eliminated by Seiya were using the spectator function to observe his every move from the sidelines. This wasn't surprising. After all, like Bakuzao Benito, most of those eliminated by Seiya were initially in disbelief at being eliminated by a vintage revolver, and then they all wanted to see who Seiya really was. However, as each player was eliminated by Seiya, their emotions quickly shifted from initial anger to bewilderment, and finally to amazement. Initially eliminated, most people assumed it was carelessness or some illicit act by Seiya. But as they continued to watch, they gradually realized that Seiya wasn't just lucky, he was truly incredible. With nothing but a vintage revolver worth 500 grand, he had already claimed the lives of over a dozen players. Just imagine how incredible he was. There are less than 10 players left now. Is this Wenren Shengai really going to set a record? More and more players are following Seiya. Initially, those eliminated by Seiya were resentful and unwilling to accept the result, but as more and more players were eliminated, they gradually began to admire his strength and skills. If Seiya, a newcomer, could truly win the periodic bounty tournament with a vintage revolver, then they would have witnessed history. Losing to a newbie would be humiliating, but if that newbie were a master, the situation would be different. Not only would they not be embarrassed, but they would even have something to brag about when the other team took off. There are only 3 left, but besides Wenren Shengai, among them is the Ice Sniper. This supernova won't have an easy time winning the final victory. In the desert map, Seiya, after spending considerable time, finally mastered the mechanics and controls of GGO. At first, he didn't even bother using the in-game radar to scan for players, simply going wherever he went and attacking. But after some trial and error, he finally figured out the radar's detection function and eliminated the last red dot within range. GGO's radar detection only works every 15 minutes, and as he used that limited time to eliminate the last player, he suddenly felt a surge of alarm. Sensing the danger, Seiya, without hesitation, leaped and rolled away from his previous position. Bang! Almost as soon as he left, a massive sand pit appeared right where he had been standing, accompanied by a cascade of sand and gravel. What's going on? If I had used the radar just now, there shouldn't be any other players within 1,000 meters of me, hiding in a nearby rock shelter. Seiya initially suspected the other party was using some kind of cloaking gadget, like optical camouflage. However, upon seeing the sand pit where he had been standing, a look of understanding suddenly crossed his face. So, it's a long-range sniper rifle, so the radar can't detect them? And judging by its power, even if I wasn't hit in the head, it should have been able to kill me instantly, right? Nearly 2 kilometers away from Seiya, a girl with short blue hair crouched on the ground, ejecting a shell from the magazine of a sniper rifle resting on the ground. Shino, watching through the telescope, was also quite surprised. She had been preparing for that shot for a long time, confidently pulling the trigger. However, she hadn't expected the final player in the bounty tournament to be a player using a vintage revolver and no other aids. Even more surprising was that this novice player had not only persevered to the end, but had also just dodged a sniper attack from her beloved Hecate. Generally speaking, if a sniper misses a shot, the safest course of action is to quickly relocate. After all, while sniper rifles offer greater range than other firearms, exposing their position can be extremely dangerous. However, now, in the bounty match map, only Shino and the new player remain. While Shino doesn't know how a novice like her has managed to hold their own, they are now over 1,000 meters apart. At this distance, as the sniper, she has the upper hand. She can hit the opponent, while the opponent has no chance of hitting her. Bang! As another bullet slammed into the sandstone bunker where Seiya was hiding, Seiya realized that if he continued to hide, the battle would be hopeless. So, after a moment's hesitation, Seiya leaped from behind the rock the moment Shino's gunshot rang out, accurately tracing the trajectory of the bullet to the exact spot where Shino had sniped. Have you finally decided to give it a go? But at this distance, coupled with the challenging desert terrain, I'll have plenty of sniper fire once I'm within range. Shino had completely anticipated Seiya's decision to fight to the bitter end. It was even more accurate to say that her last shot was meant to put pressure on Seiya. Now, with only the 2 of them left on the entire map, she is a long-range sniper, and Seiya with a vintage revolver. It was obvious who was more likely to lose patience. Chapter 269 Seiya vs Shino. Watching Seiya emerge from behind the rock, Shino's face lit up with confidence. If Seiya could hold his breath, they could easily continue to fight on, but the pressure of being held down by a sniper was something only GGO players understood. This is over. I thought I'd see a tough guy break a record, but I didn't expect his final opponent to be the ice sniper Shino. In a close combat, this newcomer's positioning and reflexes would definitely give him a fight, but at this distance, breaking through Shino's defense is practically impossible. The so-called ice sniper actually refers to Seiya's final opponent. Shino's avatar had short, icy blue hair, and she was ranked among the top 5 snipers among GGO players, hence the name. While this might seem like a top 5 ranking, It's important to understand that GGO is currently the most popular MMO on the market due to its currency conversion system, boasting the largest player base of any stealth-based virtual game. Furthermore, GGO is currently the only MMO game with a large number of professional players. In this GGO where so many professional players compete, Shino's ranking and reputation are enough to prove her strength. Like many GGO players who are watching Seiya at this moment, when she saw Seiya's figure appear in her sight, she also felt that she should have a sure win. The previous sniper shot failed, perhaps because the opponent was lucky or used some auxiliary props. But the same situation will never happen again. Looking at the crosshairs in the magnifying mirror aimed at Seiya's head, Shino took a deep breath, and the next second, she pulled the trigger without hesitation. However, at the moment when the bullet was fired with the tail flame, Seiya, who saw the trajectory of the bullet, directly supported himself with his hands and dodged the bullet with a nimble front flip. What a lie. I didn't care about the previous one, but how did he dodge it this time? That's an anti-material sniper rifle bullet. The speed of the bullet is completely different from that of ordinary firearms. Can he predict the bullet? No, even if there is ballistic prediction in GGO, a normal person would not be able to react at all. Seeing Seiya dodge her sniper shot again, Shino really lost her composure this time. If the first time was just luck, then the second time was a testament to true strength. After all, even with good luck, there can be so many coincidences. Her Hekodi was a prize from a competition. There are only 10 in the entire server, and the one she held was modified. Since obtaining this gun, she rarely missed the target she was targeting, but this time, facing this player famous Seiya, she actually missed twice in a row. How can he maintain such incredible speed in this desert? Is this the effect of that avatar? I can't let him get any closer, or I'll lose my advantage and be in danger. After a brief moment of shock and panic, Shino quickly regained her composure. Seeing how far Seiya had advanced in just a few seconds, Shino realized that if she didn't strike back, she wouldn't have the chance to fire more shots. He's getting closer. While that makes me more dangerous, my chances of hitting him are also higher. Having adjusted her mindset, Shino once again aimed the crosshairs at Seiya. This time, she didn't rush to pull the trigger, but held her breath, waiting for the perfect moment. As a seasoned GGO player, Shino was well aware of the effective range of Seiya's vintage revolver. Danger and opportunity coexisted. The closer Seiya got to her, the more dangerous it was for her as a sniper, but conversely, her chances of hitting him also increased. The closer the distance, the larger the target. This goes without saying. Furthermore, as the distance shortens, the time a bullet spends in the air naturally decreases. And as the time a bullet spends in the air decreases, Seiya naturally has less time to react. Rather than rashly firing, only to have the opponent dodge, which would dampen his own mind and waste time trying to recalibrate his position, it's better to go all in. Seiya, still sprinting across the desert, saw the opponent suddenly go silent and initially wondered if they had disconnected. But as he closed in, about 200 meters away, gunfire rang out again from a distance. Seeing the red trajectory of the bullet appear over his left shoulder, Seiya reacted with another astonishing reaction, dodging Shino's sniper shot with a roll, narrowly avoiding it once again. Seeing his third sniper shot miss, Shino's nerves were frayed. As a sniper, she knew how important composure was, but right now, she simply couldn't keep her composure. Shino, believing her sniper shots were foolproof, missed again and again. She couldn't understand how the opponent could pull off such an outrageous feat. Not only Shino, but even the other GGO players watching from outside were stunned. Previously, Seiya had been able to predict ordinary pistol and rifle bullets by their trajectory, but even dodge sniper bullets at such high speeds. Was his reflexes truly human? As Shino's shots missed again, Seiya was within 100 meters of her. At this distance, the sniper rifle no longer had any advantage. After all, at this distance, both sides could easily see each other. Shino didn't try to flee or relocate, knowing it was pointless. Not only was the opponent's speed incredible, but the sheer weight and length of her beloved Hekodi meant she couldn't outrun Seiya. Rather than being stabbed in the back, she chose a last-ditch effort, a chance of victory. Standing on the reef, Shino held up her Hekodi and gazed at Seiya, standing nearby. She hesitated, instead asking her biggest question, "How did you do that?" Even a pro player wouldn't be able to react to Hekodi bullets. Seiya, who had come within 100 meters of Shino, was visibly stunned when he saw the icy blue-haired girl on the reef clutching a sniper rifle. He hadn't anticipated that his final opponent, intending to earn some money to buy equipment, would be none other than Shino Asada, one of Kirito's harem concubines. Chapter 270 Using the gun to block bullets. This is also possible. The other GGO players watching the match were also quite curious about Shino's question. They all knew that GGO could predict the trajectory of bullets using the red trajectory. However, no GGO player had ever reached the level of Seiya. This wasn't just a matter of strong reflexes. Even now, many GGO players who watched Seiya's match believed that he was using illegal third-party software, commonly known as cheating. Seiya hadn't expected to encounter Kirito's harem here, but seeing her determination to ask him the question, even at the risk of being shot, Seiya scratched his head and said, "How did I do it? I just saw the bullet coming and dodged it normally. Plus, I had the ballistic assist, and I knew which direction it was coming from, so it shouldn't have been difficult, right?" Upon hearing Seiya's words, Shino's already bewildered expression was now filled with disbelief. "Let's not even talk about your reaction speed to dodge bullets. You said you could see a sniper bullet in flight." Shino hadn't tested the speed of a Hekadii bullet, but it was definitely far superior to that of a regular rifle or pistol. Even in game, most ordinary players couldn't even see pistol or rifle bullets, and yet this guy in front of her was actually claiming to be able to see Hekadii bullets in flight. Indeed, in an MMO, Seiya has exceptional physical prowess, and most of his abilities, while not transferable to the game, were truly remarkable. However, certain physical qualities, such as reaction speed, movement skills, and dynamic vision, carry over into the game. The specialized footwork of kendo, the dynamic vision developed through tennis, and the reaction speed and intuition accumulated through battles in various worlds allow Seiya, a novice GGO player, to annihilate professional players. In Prince of Tennis Killer Tennis, tennis balls can reach supersonic speeds, so mere bullets are nothing. The principle that firearms are stronger beyond 7 steps, while cold weapons are even stronger within 7 steps, simply doesn't apply to Seiya. Honestly, if his in-game body weren't so crippled, he could easily kill thousands of people on this battlefield with just a knife capable of inflicting damage. Because in GGO, unless he's completely surrounded by bullets and in a position where he can avoid everything, hitting him with the speed of these weapons is a real challenge. That's the answer. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Now, what we need to do is to determine the final winner. To secure the prize and upgrade his equipment, Seiya was prepared to ruthlessly destroy even the girls in Kirito's harem. With the experience packs he'd earned from eliminating those GGO players, Seiya had become more or less familiar with the game's controls. Compared to his previous shooting skills, which had made even the dog shake his head, Seiya was now confident of hitting Shino at this distance. Hearing Seiya's words, Shino didn't hesitate any longer, raising her heavy Hekade. Sniper rifles are good for long-range sniping, but that doesn't mean they can't be used at close range. It's just that at close range, they don't offer much of an advantage over other firearms. Bang! At close range, even Seiya's cheap, old-fashioned revolver managed to fire before Shino. However, due to Seiya's lack of skill and poor accuracy, the shot originally aimed at Shino's head landed on her chest instead. The damage of a vintage revolver was limited. And unless it hit a vital point like the head, a one-shot kill was impossible. So, even though Shino had been shot first, she wasn't eliminated. However, Shino's Hekadii was a different matter. While a sniper rifle isn't suited for close combat, its advantages were clear. Even a single hit to the arm or thigh was enough. With the power of Shino's modified Hekadii, a single hit would be enough to take down the fragile Seiya. At this distance, even if you have incredible dynamic vision and can see the bullet, you won't have time to dodge. Shino, watching her health bar plummet, congratulated herself on her good fortune but didn't miss this hard-earned opportunity. She raised her Hekadii and pulled the trigger at Seiya as well. At the same moment, Seiya fired a second shot. The two bullets, one large and one small, whizzed past each other in mid-air. As previously mentioned, sniper bullets travel at speeds far exceeding those of ordinary pistols. Even if the bullets were fired simultaneously, at the same distance, Seiya would inevitably be hit first. In GGO, if both teams achieve a double kill, the first player to die is deemed the loser. Watching this thrilling scene, Shino and the GGO players observing from outside unanimously assumed Seiya might have narrowly lost. However, no one could have anticipated that just as the Hecate II's bullet was about to strike Seiya, he suddenly lowered his old revolver, blocking the Hecate's trajectory. Kaka, the old revolver, having blocked Shino's Hecate II bullet, instantly shattered into scattered pieces as its durability reached zero. Witnessing this scene, Shino, with a look of astonishment, was eliminated by Seiya's final bullet. Seeing the crown and the game victory pop-up window appear before him, Seiya finally breathed a sigh of relief. Honestly, he'd worried about whether his old revolver could actually block bullets. If it hadn't, he'd be the one who just died. However, since Kirito could deflect bullets with his lightsaber, using a firearm to block them was perfectly feasible. It was just that the old revolver was so rubbish, combined with the overwhelming power of the Hecate II, that it shattered after only one bullet. Fortunately, his final shot had managed to land a fatal blow on Shino, eliminating her. Without his only weapon, Seiya wouldn't have won the match even if he'd barely survived. Seeing the 100,000 credits deposited directly into his account after his victory, Seiya beamed with joy. With so much initial funding, he could at least equip himself a bit, right? Unbeknownst to him, as he finally triumphed and was teleported back to his base, the GGO players who had been watching the bounty tournament erupted in excitement. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Death Gun noticed Seiya. This player named Winrin Seiya actually defeated Shino, the ice sniper, despite such unfavorable circumstances. Yeah, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. Someone in this world could be so incredible, using an old-fashioned revolver to pull off a comeback and defeat the top 5 snipers on the server at a distance of over 1,000 meters. What's wrong with being a top 5 sniper on the server? Didn't you see that last stunt where he used his gun to block the bullet? I'm asking you, is there anyone else on the entire GGO server who could do that? You know, he won with a vintage revolver. If he'd just equipped himself a bit, do you think those so-called pros would be a match? Upon hearing Runaway Banero, the GGO players present suddenly revealed a look of sudden enlightenment. Indeed, while Seiya's victory was a difficult and lucky one, it's important to understand that this level of skill is far from his limit. This time, his victory was only so hard-won because his weapons and equipment were so inferior. If his opponent equipped himself with better weapons next time, who could possibly stand up to this winner in Shanghai? As Beozao Benito and others saved and uploaded the match records, the winner in Shanghai ID quickly spread like wildfire throughout the GGO community. Most GGO players, seeing Seiya's match records for the first time, assumed he had used illegal software or that the videos were deliberately fabricated. After all, Seiya's performance in the videos was simply too incredible, even surpassing human standards. As the videos of Seiya's impressive performance in the bounty tournament went viral on GGO's forums, a pair of brothers in a house in Tokyo discovered his presence. More precisely, it was the older brother, Shinkal Shoichi, who noticed him. Like Seiya and Kirito, Shinkal Shoichi was a survivor of Sao. However, unlike Seiya and Kirito, who previously prioritized clearing the game in Sao, Shinkal Shoichi was a member of the Red-named Guild, Laughing Coffin. Simply put, a red-named guild in Sao is a group of guilds that either support each other or collaborate to quickly complete the game. However, players in red-named guilds are malicious PKers intent on preying on other players. As everyone knows, in Sao, once a character's HP drops to 0 in-game, their brain dies in real life. Therefore, the actions of red-named players like Laughing Coffin are not much different from those of real-life murderers. Laughing Coffin was once jointly attacked by numerous guilds in Sao, but some survivors managed to escape. Seiya wonders why these red-named players in the game haven't faced legal action since Kaiba Akihiko's defeat. But the man who noticed Seiya was none other than Shinkal Shoichi, once a key member of the Laughing Coffin, known as the Red-Eyed Zaza. Besides being a red-named Sao player, he now possesses a new title within GGO, Death Gun. Shinkal Shoichi is the eldest son of the director of a general hospital. He was plagued by illness from a young age, spending his entire life in and out of the hospital until he graduated from junior high. Because of this, his academic performance lagged behind his peers, leading his father to abandon his plans for him as an heir. In short, this lack of expectations from his family distorted Shinko Shoichi's mentality. However, experiencing the true thrill of killing in Sao, he seemed to have found his true purpose. Shinko's younger brother, Shinko Kaiji, was once a highly regarded member of his family, but his poor academic performance and constant intimidation by upperclassmen led him to idolize his feared brother in Sao. He even considered him a role model. The boy believed that if he could become Death Gun, no one would look down on him or bully him anymore. Although his brother, who had been comatose in the hospital for 2 years and was still quite thin after recent recuperation, Kaiji Shinko saw him as incredibly powerful. Johnny Block, you should have seen that guy who suddenly appeared on the GGO game forums, seeing his idol, his brother, actually contacting another member of Death Gun. Shinko Kaiji couldn't help but feel a little intrigued by this guy, even though the appearance doesn't match. GGO isn't Sao after all. With that in-game ID and that skill, it can only be that guy. Hearing the dull male voice coming from the phone, Shinko Shoichi couldn't help but grin. You're probably getting tired of killing small-time foes all the time. Don't you think he'd be a good target? Indeed, based on the intel we got in Sao, it seems the Saint runs a swordsmanship gym and lives alone. More importantly, he has a serious grudge against us, Laughing Coffin. Indeed, because of Seiya's intervention, the Laughing Coffin in Sao was destroyed even earlier than the original plot. At that time, Claudia of the Blood Knights, along with members of Laughing Coffin, attacked Seiya on the impossible floor, though they ultimately failed. However, that incident also served as a wake-up call for the Sao Guild at the time. Even a powerful guild like the Knights of the Blood had operatives secretly collaborating with Laughing Coffin, so what about other guilds? In short, Seiya had played a significant role in the eradication of Laughing Coffin, which led to many of the red-named players harboring a deep hatred for him. It would have been fine if Seiya had remained silent, but now that he had so brazenly appeared in GGO, they naturally wouldn't turn a blind eye. Besides the old grudges, Seiya's living environment made him a perfect target. After briefly discussing the plan, Shinko Shoichi hung up the phone and, watching Seiya's battle with Shino on the computer screen, his expression gradually grew frantic. Brother, is this Wenrin Shungaya you're talking about, our next target? I see you all seem quite concerned about him. Is he someone you know? Or is he very powerful? Shinko Masakazu didn't hold back when asked by his brother. After all, they were in the same boat. Is Wenrin Shungaya powerful? Let me tell you this, we Sao survivors were able to escape and returned because he defeated Kaiba Akihiko under almost impossible circumstances. To many Sao survivors, he's a hero, but to me and Johnny Block, he's like an enemy. Chapter 272, Master Tong's Harem. Indeed, not all Sao survivors are grateful to Seiya for rescuing them. Just like the red-named players who survived the previous Laughing Coffin, back in Sao, the majority of Laughing Coffin members were pure lunatics. Key members like Shinko Shoichi, Red-Eyed Zaza, and Kanemoto Atsushi, Johnny Block, were no exception. For ordinary players, successfully escaping Sao meant leaving the stifling death game behind. But for killers like Shinko and Kanemoto, it felt like they had lost their purpose. In a lawless game, red-named players could act recklessly, watching other players die in agony and wailing. But such a thrill was completely unattainable in real life. While other Sao survivors might have seen Seiya as a heroic savior, Shinko and his ilk saw him as an enemy who had annihilated their only hope. After returning to reality, Shinko Shoichi couldn't quite recover from the 2-year role he'd played in Sao. He even felt a sense of emptiness in the real world, a self he didn't expect from anyone. This is why he teamed up with Johnny Block to resume his old ways in GGO, bringing in his younger brother, who idolized him, to form the so-called Death Gun. As Kikuoka Sujiro and the others had previously speculated, the Death Gun's ability to kill in the game was actually due to manipulation in real life. The so-called Death Gun wasn't just one person, but rather the Shinko brothers and Kanemoto Atsushi. One of the three would go undercover in GGO, while the other two would sneak into someone's home in the real world and use a high-pressure syringe to inject succinylcholine into their target's real body, killing them. Kanemoto Atsushi was already a master poison user in Sao, and apparently possessed some knowledge of pharmacology in the real world. As the sons of the General Hospital Director, obtaining succinylcholine wasn't particularly difficult for the Shinko brothers. Any individual who possessed a certain level of fame within GGO and lived alone would be a target. Death Gun's original target was Shinko Kaiji's classmate, Asada Shino, but the appearance of Seiya disrupted their plans and their overall strategy. Seiya, using the name famous Seiya, entered GGO as bait to lure Death Gun into his trap. However, Seiya himself likely didn't anticipate that before his plan even began, those he defeated in the bounty tournament would already have helped him achieve fame. The bounty tournament was a small weekly competition that attracted some attention, but not much. Seiya likely had no idea he would be in Death Gun's sights so quickly. Ms. Shino, I've made it clear. My victory just now was pure luck. So could you please stop pestering me? And as you can see, my only weapon was reduced to pieces by your sniper rifle. So even if you want to PvP with me now, I don't have any. Looking at the icy blue-haired girl before him, Seiya's face showed a look of helplessness and headache. The story began a few minutes ago. After the bounty tournament ended, Seiya, with a huge sum of 100,000 credits, had intended to go to the weapon shop to equip himself. But then, a pop-up window suddenly appeared before Seiya's face, asking him to add a friend. The person who wanted to add Seiya as a friend was, of course, none other than Shino, the person he had defeated in the bounty tournament. Honestly, Seiya had defeated her with a used revolver, even under such adverse circumstances. Shino truly had no excuse for her failure. But the thought of being defeated by a newbie like Seiya, a top 5 sniper on the server, in such a situation, filled Shino with resentment. That's why, unwilling to admit defeat, she took the initiative to add another player for the first time and asked Seiya for a rematch. Seiya, of course, rejected Shino's request without hesitation. Just kidding, even playing games takes energy, especially a gun game like GGO. Did they really think Seiya was having a ball jumping around with a broken revolver? He'd competed for the bounty tournament championship before, but what good would it do him? What kind of weapon do you want? I can give you some advice. Even though I was defeated by you, I'm still a seasoned player in GGO. Despite Seiya's refusal, Shino refused to give up easily and offered to give him plenty of advice. She preferred a battle with Seiya at his full power to a battle with him, rather than a battle with him using only a vintage revolver. Seiya, already regretting agreeing to the friend request, was visibly taken aback by Shino's words. Yet, compared to a newbie like him who just randomly bought a bunch of guns, the glasses-wearing girl Shino was clearly an expert. Do you have any favorite or specialized firearms? Well, actually, if I can, I'd like to get a lightsaber first. I know there are optical weapons like that in GGO. Shino was stunned by Seiya's words. After confirming that Seiya was serious, she said, bewildered, your first choice weapon in GGO isn't a gun, but a lightsaber. Are you kidding? GGO does have some lightsabers, but in a game where guns are the norm, such weapons aren't very popular. After all, while lightsabers are incredibly lethal, capable of instantly killing someone, how can their range compare to guns? Imagine two people standing 100 meters apart. Before they even reach their opponent, the lightsaber user would likely be swarmed. Of course, there are players who buy and equip lightsabers, but most players continue to equip them as secondary weapons. Shino has never heard of someone like Seiya who wants to get a lightsaber without even buying a gun as a primary weapon. Actually, I'm better at swordsmanship than guns. It's a pity that GGO doesn't have those high-tech boxing gloves or something, otherwise I would be quite confident in my martial arts level. After hearing what Seiya said, Shino was even more speechless. Not only did he want to buy a lightsaber, but he even wanted boxing gloves? Brother, this is GGO, an MMO where guns and steel are the mainstream. If you want to play swordsmanship and martial arts, you must have come to the wrong set. Are you really not teasing me on purpose because you don't want to PvP with me, and you want to piss me off? Shino looked at the boy in front of her with a suspicious look. Seiya, do I have so much free time? If you don't have any good suggestions, then I'll just buy them myself. Chapter 273 Seiya, is this what I can hear? How much money do you have now? Regardless of whether Seiya was lying or not, having agreed to help, Shino wouldn't give up halfway. I currently have 100,000 credit, Seiya said, opening his status screen and looking at the number. 100,000 credit, isn't that the prize money for the bounty tournament? So you didn't have a penny before. Shino had previously assumed Seiya was a newbie, but she hadn't expected him to be this new. My character started with 1,000 credit, and then I spent 500 on that used revolver and another 500 on that bounty tournament, which wiped out everything. Seiya's words made Shino facepalm. She hated to admit that after all this time playing GGO, she'd been beaten by a newbie. But judging by Seiya's situation, he was indeed a newbie, and a character who couldn't be any newer. With only 100,000 credit, you're probably not going to have enough to fully arm yourself. GGO's lightsaber weapons might be unpopular, but they're not cheap at all. I remember even the cheapest lightsaber, after discounts, cost around 80,000 credit. Seiya, unfamiliar with GGO's prices, had previously assumed the 100,000 credit he'd won was a fortune, but when he heard the lightsaber's price tag, he was stunned. It's such an unpopular weapon, and yet it's so expensive. Are GGO's game planners out of their minds? I can forego armor for now. I just need a lightsaber and a small, portable firearm. As for the rest, it doesn't matter if I don't have enough money right now. I can always raise some by participating in those so-called bounty tournaments. Bounty tournaments are GGO's periodic events, held almost every week. However, only the winner gets all the prize money, so even professional players can't guarantee victory. Sinon initially tried to dissuade Seiya from being too confident. After all, there were plenty of skilled players in GGO, and Seiya wouldn't always be so lucky. But then, remembering how Seiya had been a complete novice, armed only with a vintage revolver, Sinon couldn't help but wonder if this guy could pull it off. Ultimately, at Sinon's suggestion, Seiya spent 80,000 credit on a white lightsaber called the Hangulung G1 and a little over 10,000 credit on an FN7 pistol. As for armor, Seiya had to forego it for now due to lack of funds. After all, as long as he didn't get hit, armor wasn't really important. If you have the money, I'd still recommend getting a better set of armor. While most GGO pros prefer to use live ammunition, a small number use optical weapons. Lasers are faster than live ammunition. Players with armor can use their shield to block half the damage from optical weapons, but for someone like you without any armor, it's practically a sure kill. Seeing that Seiya had truly invested most of his funds in a lightsaber as his primary weapon, and not just a spider, Shino couldn't help but sigh. Initially, Seiya had been reluctantly considering another PvP match with her to familiarize himself with a new weapon, thanks to her helpful introductions and advice, but Shino decided to back out. The proud girl, convinced that Seiya didn't even have decent armor, would be an unfair victory even if he defeated him. So, she decided to wait until Seiya was fully prepared before challenging him in PvP. I didn't expect a girl with glasses to be so principled. I figured out the basics, and I've bought my weapons, so let's call it a day. Seeing Shino log off, Seiya summoned his system menu and tapped the logout button. Suguha-chan, are you really a high school student? What do you eat? You've grown up so well. You look like you're not even smaller than me. I think if you have kids in the future, you'll save a lot of money on baby formula. Idiot, what are you touching? Nurse, you're asking me that even though you already know the answer. I'm checking to see if you're growing well. Honestly, it's rare to see a high school student your size. Having just logged out of GGO, Seiya heard Suguha and Angie arguing. The content of their conversation made Seiya, who was still lying there, hesitate whether to open his eyes. After all, Seiya could easily tell from their conversation that they seemed to be engaging in something quite intimate. If he sat up, wouldn't that be embarrassing for them? As a gentleman, Seiya felt it was wrong to interrupt others' pleasure, so he quietly opened his eyes. However, as he did so, he saw Angie looking at him with amusement. Seiya-kun, aren't you disappointed that you didn't see the scene you imagined? Although Seiya had tried his best to remain silent, he hadn't noticed that he was currently covered in various instruments. Naturally, when he woke up, the equipment would change. Although Angie had been playing around with Suguha, as a professional nurse, she kept a certain amount of attention on Seiya. Seiya, you didn't hear or see anything just now, did you? In contrast to Angie's amused expression, Suguha, now in her pajamas, looked at Seiya with a blush on her face. Yes, I just woke up. I didn't hear or see anything. Nurse Anki is a mean-spirited woman, as you've probably already experienced. If she tells you anything, don't believe it. Well, of course I believe Seiya. After all, this woman has been touching you since Seiya went undercover. Anki's words immediately reaffirmed her previous belief that Seiya was an honest man. Seiya, on the other hand, examined himself suspiciously upon hearing Suguha's words. He now seriously suspected someone had taken advantage of this handsome man while he was asleep. Don't listen to that girl. I was just doing my job. I've been a nurse for so many years, I've seen all sorts of men. How could I possibly be attracted to a child like you, who hasn't even grown all his hair yet? Anki was furious at having her professional integrity questioned, and quickly remarked that while Seiya was strong, she still saw him as a child. Seiya, in turn, was dissatisfied. Although he looked like a high school student, he was much more mature than a young nurse like Anki, wasn't he? So he quickly retorted, "You haven't seen it, how do you know my hair hasn't grown out yet?" Chapter 274 Living with a beautiful girl is so terrible. Regardless of age, Seiya, being questioned as a man, naturally retorted, "You haven't seen it, how do you know my hair isn't fully grown?" Meanwhile, Suguha, hearing her brother Seiya being mocked, didn't think much of it and simply said, "That's right, you're not me. Who said Seiya-san's hair isn't fully grown?" As soon as Suguha's words were out, Seiya and Anji turned to look at her in astonishment. The adorable Suguha, realizing what she had just said, blushed visibly, and even a visible white steam formed above her head. Seiya, Suguha, have you been hiding a lot of things from me? Anji, I see. No wonder Suguha-chan was so worried about Seiya-kun being kidnapped. You really can't judge a person by their appearance. I underestimated you, Suguha, it's not what you think. Facing the strange looks from Seiya and Anji, Suguha ran off with blushing cheeks. Seiya was about to get up and chase after her, but Anji stopped him and said, "She's probably shy right now. How could she possibly talk to you? I guess I shouldn't have teased her like that just now. I hope she doesn't get too angry." Hearing Anji's words, Seiya felt a little guilty. Indeed, Seiya and Anji had clearly been teasing Suguha. Putting Anji aside for now, as Suguha's childhood sweetheart, Seiya knew her personality quite well. "Don't worry, I'll help comfort her later. I quite like this girl, after all." Hearing Anji pat his shoulder and say this, Seiya was about to express his gratitude, but when he realized what was happening, he was suddenly confused and asked, "Anji, you mean you're planning on staying at my house tonight?" Seeing Seiya's surprise, Anji pointed at the clock and said angrily, "It's 1 in the morning. Are you planning on letting a beautiful woman like me go home so late? Even if I'm not afraid of encountering some thugs, can you tell me I can still catch the bus or subway at this time?" Hearing Anji's words, Seiya was speechless. After all, her argument was so well-founded that he couldn't refute it at all. "In that case, I'll go help Anji clean up a room. We do have other empty rooms at home." She was working overtime to protect her own safety, so asking her to go home alone at this time was really unreasonable. And judging by Suguha's pajamas, it seemed the girl had disobeyed her mother's orders and secretly come to stay at her house. Now that Anji was staying there too, Suguha's mother would probably feel a little more at ease. Suguha, who had already returned to her room, was now flushed, burying herself under the covers. Though she blurted out her words in a moment of panic, she hadn't anticipated revealing her deepest secret. Seiya and Anji thought they were playing a prank on Suguha, but little did they know, Suguha had actually seen it. After all, Suguha had been caring for Seiya throughout the year he'd been trapped in Sao. Although Suguha had hired a nanny, she'd always been overwhelmed. It's wonderful to have a hearty breakfast so early in the morning. And Suguha-chan's cooking is so amazing. She'll definitely make a wonderful wife and mother. After a night of respite, the awkwardness of last night had clearly dissipated. As Anji, dressed in sexy pajamas, casually approached the table to eat breakfast, she began to shout again. As a nurse, Anki usually goes to bed late and wakes up early due to her frequent shifts, so she really doesn't have the energy to make breakfast. This morning, she woke up to hot milk and a balanced breakfast, which made Anki feel that this kind of life with food already for her was really good. "I've decided. In order to better take care of Seiya-kun's safety, I will move in here during the days when he's on an investigation mission." Hearing Anki's unilateral announcement of moving in with just a bag, Seiya's forehead immediately turned black and he said, "Ms. Anki, you should have your own place to live, right? And no matter how you look at it, it's obvious that you're here just for Suguha's food. Your intentions are not pure at all." Taking a look at Anki's sexy pajamas and her carefree and uninhibited personality, Suguha beside her frowned and said, "Seiya is right. It was okay for work last night, but it's too strange for her to live here all the time." Suguha was wary of Angel. Even though she claimed to only treat Seiya as a child, what if something unexpected happened? After all, Seiya was so talented, and Angel was so mature and sexy, Suguha had to nip any possibility in the bud. "Don't be so unkind, can you? I live alone back home anyway, and there's a spare room here. If I stay here, I won't have to run around when Seiya sneaks into GGO. And Suguha-chan, if I stay here, I can talk to your mother and get her to agree to your stay. Suguha's mother had objected to their staying at Wenren's house, worried that Seiya and Suguha, two half-grown boys, might do something wrong. But with Angie as a nurse to monitor them, the situation would be different. Upon hearing the bargaining chip offered by Angie, Suguha was immediately tempted. After a moment's hesitation, she said, "If you promise me you won't do anything to Seiya, then I'll agree to your terms." Angie, "No problem." Seiya, Cyrillic letter deck, "No problem, you bastards. What are you talking about? If I remember correctly, this is my home. Did you ask for my opinion?" After finishing breakfast, Angie happily went to work at the hospital, and said that when she got back from get off work in the evening, she would go back to her old home to pick up her luggage. Yes, that's right. Although Seiya, as the head of the family, protested, with a vote difference of 2-1, Suguha and Angie still temporarily moved into Seiya's home. Seiya was helpless and worried about this result. Fortunately, he had not told Asuna his home address before. Otherwise, if Asuna, who had recovered from her illness, came to visit him, then Seiya would really be in trouble. Miss Angie is fine, but the main thing is Suguha and Asuna, childhood sweethearts and the sky drop. The plot of the novel and anime was directly printed into reality. Seiya is not Kirito himself, and he doesn't know if he can hold the situation. Chapter 275, Seiya's fame in GGO. Bored during his school break, Seiya would often sneak into GGO. Honestly, while there were already quite a few Seiyas in Between Hearts and Dreams, there weren't really any characters who were familiar with using guns. GGO, after all, was a gun-centric MMO, so constantly wielding a lightsaber wasn't a problem. Seiya had inherent advantages over other GGO players, whether it was dynamic vision, observation, or simply vision itself. Even if his shooting skills were a little weak, it wasn't impossible to practice. So, before the official start of the Bob tournament, Seiya would set aside some time every day to practice. Over the past few weeks, he'd also participated in several smaller tournaments like bounty tournaments, and with the prize money, he'd finally managed to assemble his gear. Even after just half a month, thanks to the videos of GGO players posting on the forums from the bounty tournaments, and Seiya's performance in the various GGO weekly tournaments, he was no longer the unknown new player he once was. With a clang-dang-dang sound, the bullets fired by a certain GGO player were chopped off by a white lightsaber. With a look of shock on his face, he was finally shot in the head by the opponent's pistol, unwillingly being eliminated. Damn it. There are so many bounty tournaments going on every week, why did I have to face this guy Golden Cub? I was so close. If it had been anyone else, I might have won this map's bounty tournament. Hearing the GGO player's angry roar, passers-by also cast a silent look of condolence. Forget it. Even though you lost in the end, at least you've faced the Golden Cub. The entry fee for the bounty tournament is only 500 credit. You can brag about it to others later, so at least it wasn't a huge loss. Hearing his friend's words of comfort, the player who had just been eliminated by Seiya sighed and said, "Damn it. If my opponent hadn't been the Golden Cub, but someone else, I really would have had a chance of winning. Besides, wasn't it said before that the Golden Cub's only strengths were lightsaber skills and reflexes? How could he just shoot me in the head from dozens of meters away?" Those who said the Golden Cub's shooting wasn't good. How long have you been away from GGO? That's all nonsense. The Cub's shooting wasn't good before because he had never played a gun game like GGO before, but now, less than half a month has passed, and he's a far cry from what he was before. After winning the bounty tournament and looking at the 100,000 credits he had earned, Seiya's avatar's youthful face was filled with joy. Although he's now fully equipped with a comprehensive set of gear, he still participates in every weekly GGO bounty tournament. After all, GGO features a currency conversion system that allows in-game currency to be exchanged for real money, and who could ever have too much money? Bounty tournaments offer both skill development and a chance to earn money, a sport Seiya considers tailor-made for him. It's precisely because of Seiya's continued involvement in bounty tournaments that he earned the nickname Golden Cub. Golden refers to Seiya's exclusive interest in bounty tournaments, as well as the dazzling golden hair of his avatar, SNS 404. As for Cub, it also refers to his avatar's handsome physique, but also to his unique combat style, which differs from that of the average GGO player. In a world dominated by guns, Players typically maintain a distance from their opponents. However, Seiya is the exact opposite. He approaches his enemies fearlessly, his attacks as fierce as a lion, hence his name, Young Lion. After playing GGO for about half a month, Seiya's current fighting style has essentially solidified. Unlike Kirito, who mostly wields a lightsaber, Seiya has also achieved a certain mastery of firearms after training. If Kirito is a pure lightsaber wielder in GGO, then Seiya's fighting style is probably what's known as American II. Looks like I've earned quite a bit of extra money before the so-called Bob tournament begins. I wonder if this bounty tournament system will remain in place. Otherwise, staying in GGO seems like a good option. After converting all the credit he won from today's bounty tournament into real-world currency, Seiya logged off contentedly. Meanwhile, Shino, who had also emerged from another bounty match map, gnashed her teeth in anger as she watched the now dark avatar in her friend list. Damn it! That guy got away again. Ever since being defeated by Seiya 2 weeks ago, Shino had been wanting to find Seiya for revenge, but the bastard had been deliberately following her. Shino used to have little interest in weekly bounty matches, as such small tournaments rarely offered strong players. She'd only participated to test out her modified Hecate II. But since her defeat by Seiya, Shino now participated in almost every bounty match. The reason was simple: even though Seiya had always refused to play PvP with her, whenever he participated, there was a chance she'd be matched with him in the same map. Sadly, after half a month had passed, and it seemed as if they weren't meant to be together, never once matching up in the same zone. Since she couldn't be matched to the same division, she had to at least win faster than Seiya. The girl, who had a strong desire to win, secretly competed with herself. However, even if she decided the winner herself, Shino had never been able to beat Seiya once. Just like this time, she finally won, but Seiya had already logged off and gone to sleep. In the bounty tournament, every 100 people would be assigned to a division, but the start time was indeed the same. Since Seiya had already logged off, it meant that he had already won first. Shino, who was in a depressed mood, was about to log off as well. Just as she was about to log out of the game, a girl of the same height as her with long straight black hair suddenly bumped into her. I'm sorry, someone was chasing me just now, so I didn't pay attention to the road." Looking at the girl with long straight black hair in front of her, Shino was stunned for a moment, then stood up to say that it was okay. "Are you a first-time GGO player?" Honestly, while GGO is currently the most popular MMO, as a game primarily focused on gun-based PvP, female players are quite rare. The other person, with long, straight black hair and a rather delicate appearance, could easily become entangled in a virtual game with more men than women. Shino could fully understand why. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.